bruh? Sup, bruh?
Bro?
Sup, bruh?
Bro?
Sup, bruh?
Let's go! Howdy, y'all. Welcome in. The Rob Brown Show on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. Happy Wednesday. Happy midweek. Happy one mo day closer to another outstanding weekend of American football across these great United States. I am Rob Brown, the regular Lonzo on the other side of the metaphorical glass, in charge of the ones, the twos, and all of the audible pleasure that will infiltrate your ear holes.
Lonzo is a superstar.
For the next 4 hours of sports talk, entertainment, as we continue to, I guess we should say, finish up putting last weekend in the rearview mirror, week number 2 of the college football season, week number 1 of the NFL season. We've gotten to a little bit of anything and everything about that today. We finish up our thoughts from the weekend that was and turn our attention to the weekend that is to be. And we've got a lot of stuff to cover about this upcoming weekend. A very interesting slate of college football. Last week we thought it was going to be kind of a dead week. And it wasn't not a dead week, but there were a few games that turned out to be more interesting than we thought they might be. Clemson Troy obviously being one of them. For 2 quarters and some change, South Carolina v. SC State being one of them. There were some very interesting games. This week, the schedule looks a little meatier. It looks a little better. It looks a little more compelling than last week's did. And I think there are a few teams on upset alert. And I said this last night on BetMGM tonight because Ryan Horvat has been defending the Clemson Tigers to the end. He has been all about it. In fact, last night he said, "Rob Brown, thank you," because he checks in the morning. He doesn't get on the stream, but he'll text me when we're doing the show. He listens to the show in the AM. Because he's one of those early morning folks that goes out and like jogs and stuffs. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Whatever. Anyway.
So is Chris Miller, who checks in.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I know. And I love both of them very dearly. Why? Just stop, fellas. You're both married. You both got kids. You're in great shape. Just stop. You don't need everything. Okay. You're in good shape.
The best way to stay in great shape is to keep, get up and running.
I know, but it just seems gross and I don't like it. So Horvey is like, he's rolling. He's all over the Tigers. He's like, look, they're going to get it together. They're going to get there. They're going to click. So I asked him last night on BetMGM tonight because, Brad threw a couple of college football games at me. And then Ryan said, I saw you tweet out a screen cap of the ESPN game result prognosticator, which gives Georgia Tech a 55% chance of winning over Clemson at home this weekend. He said, tell me that you're just trying to aggravate the Clemson fans down there in South Carolina, and you're not legitimately on board with Georgia Tech pulling the upset. And I'm like, look, I have not committed to making that the pick yet. I have not committed to making that my upset alert of the weekend.
Why are you being non-committal? I mean, do the thing, man.
Because I still got a lot of numbers that I want to pour through.
Wow.
I still got a lot of metrics. I still got a lot of data points. Hey, man, some of us do things. Some of us do things.
Some of us do things.
There's a couple more data points, a couple of metrics that I want to look through. Again, it is early in the season, but we do have 2 weeks that we can go back and evaluate. But I said to Horvat last night, the same thing that I've said on this show. Number 1, I do not make picks or statements or takes or commentary or analysis with the goal and intent of riling anyone up. It's not my style. I don't like it. And number 2, my philosophy on football is very simple. What's on tape? Like, let's look at what is on tape, because as every football coach in the history of forever has ever said, tape don't lie. Video don't lie. What happens on the tape is what happened. I mean, that's just what it is. And so if I'm looking on tape, and Horvey said, well, wait a minute, Rob Brown, did Clemson not look way better in the second half against Troy than they did in the first half? He said, I don't know what you expect coming off the L to LSU. I don't know what you expect in a situation where they're going to play a game against a little bitty team that they can't get up for. And my response to Horvat was, if you took that shot on the chin from LSU, and I know that it was a one-score game, it wasn't a one-score game. It is a one-score game on the scoreboard, but if you watch that game, it was not a one-score game. I said, if you turned around the very next week after the heat that you took for that performance against LSU, again, not losing the game, but how you lost the game, and you could not get up with an opportunity to go get it right and hang 70 on the board against Troy, if you could, if your rationale for that game is, oh, that's not a game to get up for, and you believe that's true, that would tell me that there's bigger problems in Clemson than Cade Klubnik. If that team in that spot could not get up to go do what Ohio State did to Grambling, what Tennessee did to ETSU, what Oregon did to FCS Oklahoma State, I guess, to do what Florida State did to East Texas A&M. If you could not get up for that game after the game that came before it, and maybe more importantly, going into the game that comes after it on the road at Georgia Tech, who is feeling themselves all of a sudden, that tells me you got a bigger problem. And I don't, for the record, I don't believe that to be true. I don't think that that's the case. The problem is, if that's not the case, and I do not think it is, I do not think it was Clemson couldn't get up for that game. I think it was, yeah, I know. As soon as I said it, I was like, damn it.
It's not even about what you said. It's what you did when you said it.
I know. I leaned into that one, and I did not intend to.
Leaning is a good term there, because I don't know what you were doing.
If Clemson could not get excited about that game in that spot, which by the look of it, they did not. If they couldn't get jacked up about that game, then you got a locker room problem. I don't think that's the case. I just think you're not as good as you thought you were. And that's not to say you can't be as good as you thought you would be, but right now you're not. And again, Horvey said, wait a minute, Rob, Georgia Tech went out to Colorado.
So they're not who we thought they were?
And nobody's letting them off the hook. He said, Rob Brown, Georgia Tech went out to Colorado and they struggled against the Buffs. And I said, whoa. I will say this, as much as I have said, I do think it's not going to be the same year for the Buffs this year. How could it be? You lost an obvious first-round draft pick in Shedeur Sanders, and you lost a Heisman Trophy winner in Travis Hunter. In what world do you lose? And forget the joke about Shedeur Sanders. In what world do you lose a guy that the entire offense was based around? It was based around Shedeur and Travis Hunter. That's just, that was what it was. Nothing wrong with that. It was what it was. But how do you think you're going to lose your quarterback that the entire offense was based around and his Heisman Trophy winning wide receiver and have the same year? However, we also have gotten, I think, unparalleled access, which kind of comes with the territory of having Deion Sanders as your coach. We have gotten unparalleled access to the Colorado Buffalo football team, locker room, sideline, etc. And the one thing I think you can say, feel however you want to feel about Deion Sanders' team and roster construction. Feel however you want to feel about Deion having 35 new kids that transferred in to replace 35 kids who transferred out on the roster. However you want to feel about it, fine, that's on you. But I think the one thing you can see with all these behind-the-scenes videos that we get out of Colorado, with the understanding, obviously, that it is ultimately Colorado who elects what goes on to social media and what doesn't, so you're only getting the highlights there. But I think one thing that you can see is that the boys will go to war for that guy. The boys will go to war for Deion. They're not going to be a good team because they lost the talent. But we also know that you absolutely can go out and win a couple of games you're not supposed to win.
Yeah, they're not as bad as advertised.
They're not as bad as advertised, but the reason why is not because they have talent or great coaching. The reason why is they got a bunch of dudes who are going out there with a ton of heart. I gave Dion credit for one thing above all. I don't think he's a great X's and O's guy. I do think he's a hell of a motivator. I do think the kids are going to go out there and they're going to play good disciplined football. I just don't think they have the talent they had. So that Georgia Tech close game, close win over Colorado in week 1, adding on to the fact that it was week 1. And this isn't old school Georgia Tech. This isn't Paul Johnson's triple option. This isn't an offense that Georgia Tech, like, they had that one upset every year, and they had those close games every year. And I have said every year that the reason why is, and Nick Saban said this once when he was at Alabama. I don't remember if they were playing. I think they were playing, hell, they may have been playing like Navy or somebody. But he said these games are always kind of difficult, because this isn't an offense that you see often. And so you spend 51 weeks a year preparing for more traditional offense, like variants of traditional offenses. And then you got 1 week to prepare for this one type of one specific offense that you're going to see one time and then not again in the season. And historically, that was Georgia Tech. Even Brent Key's last year at Georgia Tech was still a transition year. They were still a very run-heavy kind of base power formation team. And this year, they're not that anymore. They're still a run-based team, but now they got guys. Now they got a quarterback. Now they got receivers. They've opened it up a little bit. So when they go on the road to Colorado in week 1, it is entirely unsurprising to me that, like a lot of passing predicated teams, we said this about Clemson. Let's not panic. Yeah, you lost that game, and yeah, it was not as close as the scoreboard indicates. But also, LSU's a good football team. That's a good football team. That's a team that is on their way to making a college football playoff. And Brian Kelly's coaching for his dadgum life. So it's unsurprising that it took Clemson a little while to find a rhythm and find a routine. But that narrative, as far as I'm concerned, that narrative went to bed in week 2. You know, if Clemson lined it up against LSU and had that performance in week 1, and then they lined it up in week 2 against Georgia, and they had a performance that looked like they did against Troy, I'd be a little less panicky. I'd be a little less worried about it. But even with all the credit, because I do think, even if it goes against my point, the nuance of the conversation is important. Even with all the credit that I have given the Troy Trojans, I told you I've covered this team for a long time. When I was down in the Panhandle, we had a lot of, relatively speaking, a lot of Troy fans. And Troy has always been a team that looks at the guys from the South that wanted to go to Bama and Auburn and Florida and Georgia and couldn't get in for whatever reason. They didn't have the grades. They didn't have the resume. A number of them, I know this happened quite a number of times with Alabama. Guys thought they were going to Alabama, and then their scholarship offer got pulled for whatever reason. And then they just got to go somewhere. And Troy would, hey, come to Troy. Come put it down on tape that you're an SEC, ACC caliber player. Like, come here and do that. And they get a lot of respect from me, the Troy Trojans do. But at the same time, let's not sit here and pretend that they're they're Georgia, they're Alabama, they're LSU. They're not. So I am concerned, officially, on the docket, on the record, concerned. And for the record, not that I need to go on the record, because any of you who are 6 a.m.ers here on this show, I said Clemson at Georgia Tech. I made that an upset alert before the season started, before the year started, with the assumption that Clemson was going to be everything that you fans told me that they were going to be. I had this game as an upset alert before the season, before you got dominated by LSU, before you took 2.5 quarters to get going against Troy and had to come back from a 16-3 deficit to do it. Before all that, this was an upset pick. So now it damn sure is. And the reason that it is interesting is not just because it is an upset alert for the weekend. The reason that it is interesting as an upset alert is for those of you that are playing in the wire-to-wire upset challenge, where you call your shot every week, I want you to know, I see the text line. Okay? I see the text line. Every day when we come in here, I open up the text line. And since the two shows obviously share the Hub City Spartanburger text line at 844-326-3663, I come in here every day and I get to read through the text that come through that went to their show yesterday. And so Monday and Tuesday, some of you guys started to send in your upset picks for the week. I came in this morning and I didn't count them, but I'd say there's probably 10 to 12 of them. There is one person so far that has picked Georgia Tech over Clemson. Now you might go, well, of course, Rob, Clemson's a better football team. Hold your horses. I don't think that's why. You know why I don't think many of you are picking Georgia Tech over Clemson? This place is ripe with South Carolina fans because this isn't the first year they've done the upset challenge. It's been going on dating back to the Offsides with Mark Ryan days when I first got here. This has been a game that's been played annually. And annually, there were a gazillion South Carolina fans who would routinely, week by week, pick Clemson to get upset as their pick. There's not that this week. Do you know why? It's not because suddenly the Gamecock fans think Clemson can't lose this game. The reason why is it's a 2.5 point spread. Some of the books have it at 3.5, some have it at 2.5. But the point is, this is a field goal spread. Even if everything I said in the offseason was right about Georgia Tech, it's a new team. They got new vigor. Brinke's a football guy. Dynamic running back, quarterback combination. Good offensive line, defensive line play. Like, they're a dangerous team now. If I also would have told you preseason, even if I said this game's on upset alert, if I'd have said you're going into Georgia Tech and you're a 2.5 point favorite, you guys would have run me off the radio. You'd have been like, oh, you're a hater. You clearly don't know what you're doing. Get the hell off the show. But now you can't because that's Vegas. That's the most unbiased people in America.
I can't run you off for being a hater.
No, but they could say I need to be run off.
All right.
And they're not doing that. And I think that Clemson fans aren't
doing that.
There is
like orange across your hat right now. So.
Yeah, it's Swamp Rabbit orange today. Came in.
Okay.
A different orange.
Okay.
I think the reason why that's not happening because, hey, I'm an egomaniac. You're damn right I have searched my name on your message boards. And you're damn right I have seen when you post about me on the message boards. And you're damn right that I have seen that the not overwhelming majority, all of them, talk about how much I suck at my job. There's none of that happening right now. Nobody's calling me a hater. Nobody said, because you're all going, damn, everything Rob said in the preseason is coming true. Every concern he had is a real concern right now. Every criticism he had is playing out right now. You're in danger on the road this weekend. I said that 3 weeks ago, and you were all like, oh, come on, Rob. Georgia Tech's not there yet. You're 2.5 point favorites. ESPN's got you with a 45% chance to win that game, which means, because I'm good at math, a 55% chance to not win that game. Yeah, we're going to talk about that today. We turn our attention 88 miles an hour. We're going to the future, talking about the football weekend. I'm Rob. He's Lonzo. Ladies and gentlemen, 4 hours of the most electrifying hours in sports talk entertainment are underway now. It's the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate. As of right now, I asked that question to Orby too. Right now, Clemson, Florida State. Who would you take in that game? He's like, I'd take Clemson. I was like, based on what? And he didn't have an answer for me. All right, dude, stay right there. We'll be right back. All right, people, thanks for hanging in there. Welcome in. For the record, you got to text Cole and Diesel. Don't tell me, Mike. I'm not in charge of that game. I need less responsibility on my plate, not more. You know what? Let's do the call out. I haven't done the call out yet. I haven't done a call out this season. Granted, the season's 2 weeks old, but I haven't done a call out so far this season. Clemson fans, where are you? Where are you? I know it's 6:24 in the morning, but I also know that you're not the type of people who are going to shy away from conversation. So where are you this morning? Where are you? Not literally, like I don't need to know where you literally are right now. I mean, you're welcome to share if you want. And I'm here for it. But where are you literally with this football team? What's your thoughts? What's your feeling? What's your vibe? Because we've been talking about you dating back to Monday. On Monday, we did, well, actually Monday, where I gave you some thoughts, including, again, that's a good Troy program. Maybe not what they were in their prime a handful of years ago when a number of teams stopped scheduling Troy because Troy would routinely come up into your house and give you a game you weren't ready for. But it's still a good program. They know how to recruit the way that a program of their size need to recruit in order to get guys that maybe were like just not good enough to make big time rosters, or maybe just didn't have the grades, were big time talent, but didn't have the qualifications they needed or whatever. That being said, it is still Troy, right? Like what I do not think you can do is take solace in, well, you know, Troy has a bunch of guys that almost made Auburn's roster. Like that's not good enough of a defense for where you are. And I understand that in asking for a response, in fact, I had this conversation with a higher up a handful of weeks ago when I pointed out that I probably don't get, a lot of you are going to judge me on this, stick with me. I probably don't get the quantity of phone calls that a lot of radio shows get, but I don't think that's on me. And here's why. Because I think most shows, and maybe this is a lesson I still have yet to learn in 17 years. I think most shows intentionally say things that are either A, inflammatory, or B, are obviously an overwhelmingly pro whatever team they cover in order to generate those phone calls. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to come in here and give you the objective down the middle gray truth. And that's not something that a lot of people respond to, right? Like if you walk into a bar and a guy's like, hey, your mom's fat, your girlfriend's ugly, and your dog's dumb, that's going to generate a response. If you walk into the bar and some guy goes, hey, I'm sure everyone in your family is very nice. Like, all right, thanks, bud. I get it. But that's why I also like to go deeper into the X's and O's and the numbers and the metrics and all that, because I think it adds to it. So I'm calling Clemson fans because, and I've been told this was the case. This has been said, it's not just me saying this. I got told this when I got here.
Hey, where are they? Where'd they go?
And I've had this said to me by multiple hosts, not just on this station, in the time I've been here. Rob, the best thing in the world for you is for Clemson to be good. And I said, why is that? And I have been told over and over, because when they're not, their fans aren't fans anymore. I don't believe that to be true. However, I haven't gotten anything.
It's hunting season.
I have had since Monday South Carolina fans that have blown up the text line to comment on the game against SC State, to start talking about, speaking of, we're coming to you, Gamecock fans. You're in danger this weekend too. I said it on Monday. The team that played the first half against SC State will lose to Vanderbilt on Saturday. A team that played in the second half can win. But again, I do think it is fair to ask. Absolutely. I do think it is fair to ask the question about Clemson and South Carolina both. In both games, you were underwhelming in the first half. Again, it is a 3-point game if Fakari Swain doesn't return 2 punts for touchdowns. It's offense versus defense. It's a 3-point game.
I know you keep saying that, but you're making it sound like it's an unusual thing for special teams to be good
to
for
run back-to-back punts.
It's not unusual. It's Beamer ball. Come on.
Yeah, go back and find me any other time in the last all of the games that Beamer's been there. They've run back-to-back punts back. You won't, because it hasn't happened. And in fact, as somebody pointed out, I think in the SEC it's happened like 3 times in history. Like, it's not common, right? So even if I give you one of them, great. It's a 10-point game. So. But the point here is, I said it about Clemson, and I will say it about South Carolina as well. Did you win the second half because you went in the locker room, you made adjustments, somebody with a whistle gave a rah-rah shish boom ball, let's go kick their ass speech, and you came out and you just did that in the second half? Or did you come out and dominate the second half of your game, both of you, because you were playing small schools that had teams that just ran out of gas? Because I'll keep it a buck. I think it's probably, respectfully, a little more true for Clemson, that it looked like Troy just ran out of gas, because Troy was still popping big plays, but you could tell they just weren't coming off the ball as explosively as they were in the first half. I do think it is also true of SC State against South Carolina. Like, that team ran out of gas. They just didn't have the dogs to hunt in the fourth quarter. And at some point, the disparity of talent is going to win out, right? It's the same philosophy behind why Rob Brown is pro 7-game series in playoffs. I think in Major League Baseball, the NHL, they do this already, but the NBA, I think every series should be 7 games. As much as I understand it puts a lot on the athletes to have to perform that many games, especially if you're in multiple 7-game series, that's also the advantage of go win it in 4 or 5, so you don't have to do that. But with the knowledge that that's not how it works. I have always been an advocate of every playoff series being 7 games. And I've been an advocate of that because the more games you play, the longer you play, the more talent disparity, the more the better team is going to just be the better team. And so I think these 2 games are kind of 1-game proof of that. At some point, the fact that you have way more money, way more resources, way more assets, the fact that you just have more to work with, better talent, better access to professionals who can pitch in the preparation and all that, at some point, you have to assume that you're just going to have more gas in the tank. You're just going to be able to live longer and throw more late punches. And I think that's what happened to both of these teams. It got to a point. I don't think that the Troy Trojans were suddenly stopped. Like, suddenly Clemson figured it out. I think they ran out of gas. I don't think South Carolina, I will say I do think South Carolina in their second half against SC State, it looked like they made more changes, adaptations. They tinkered a little bit more with what was and was not working than Clemson did, which makes sense because, again, Garrett Riley's not here to run the Garrett Riley offense. He's here to run the Clemson offense. Clemson doesn't, like Dabo doesn't like to make changes. That has been the endearing quality to most of you about this guy for a very long time. And it's great when it works. It's like Mike McDaniels in his joggers and his neon shoes, right? Like that's fun and quirky and great. When the Dolphins have the number 2 offense in the NFL for 2 years in a row, when the Dolphins go to the playoffs in back-to-back years, when the only team that can beat the Dolphins in the playoffs was the Kansas City Chiefs, that's great. But the minute the Dolphins are going out there and letting Danny Dimes hang 33 on them, now all of a sudden, the joggers and the vape pen and the neon flashy shoes aren't fun anymore. They're not quirky. They're dumb now, right? Like it's kind of that. So I will ask you, Gamecock fans, I will ask you, Clemson fans, it is a call out for participation in the show today. What are we looking at here? Are you worried? You both are on upset alert this weekend. South Carolina is absolutely on upset alert against Vanderbilt. And again, transitive property of football, but Vanderbilt just beat the dog snot out of the same Virginia Tech team that you guys took into the fourth quarter to finally break away from. Clemson fans, you got hammered by LSU. It was not a one-score game. It was literally. But if you watch the game, you got dominated. And then it took you 3 quarters to get going, 2.5 quarters to get going against Troy. And I believe it's because Troy just ran out of gas, not because you suddenly figured out how to football. So are you worried? When we come back, let's talk about those 2 games. Let's talk about Clemson, Georgia Tech. Let's talk about South Carolina, Vanderbilt. We have gotten a couple of texts that have come in about Clemson, about South Carolina. We'll read and respond to those. We look early at the football weekend upcoming for the Gamecocks and the Tigers. When we come back, I'm Rob Heaslonzo. The Rob Brown Show's on your radio. This is the Fan Upstate. You think Vandy should be a ranked opponent? That's actually a really good question. Let's see. Let me think. I forgot who Vandy had in week 1. Let's see. Who did Vandy have in week 1? I know they had an FCS team, Charleston Southern, 45-3, and then 44-20. Honestly, probably. I would say probably yes. Joel, I would say probably Vanderbilt could theoretically be a top 25 team. I mean, road win at Virginia Tech, which South Carolina not having played a ranked team and having a fist fight against that same team, being at number 11. And Vandy's win over Charleston Southern was a more impressive win than is Charleston. I mean, I guess you would have to answer, are Charleston Southern and SC State on the same plane of existence? Or does SC State give you a little bit of a bump? But I don't think it is, especially considering South Carolina was ranked before that game. So I don't know. But yes, I could see if you're South Carolina, a win over Vanderbilt is a good win. Let's make that very obvious. This would be a good win for you this weekend. I don't know if it's like a resume win to most people because Vandy just has that stigma attached to them of being Vandy. But I do think it would be considered a good win. Stay right there. The Rob Brown Show on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. Clemson, South Carolina fans. Call out. Asking for your participation this AM. I don't do it very often. If you want to participate, we provide you a multitude of resources to do so. The Hub City Spartanburger text line at 844-326-3663. You can use that number to call into the show. You can tweet me at The Rob Brown Show. You can send me a DM on Instagram or Facebook at The Rob Brown Show. You can tweet the station at The Fan Upstate. I give you my dadgum email address, rob.brown@thefanupstate.com. I don't ask for your participation very often, but I will this morning because I think you're both going into your first dramatically concerning weekend. And that's not an issue because every football team is going to have weekends they enter dramatically concerned. I think the issue is not that you are dramatically concerned. I think the issue is that had I told you preseason with the expectations that you both have, Clemson's higher than South Carolina's, both of those programs higher than they've been for a while. If I told you preseason that your first dramatic weekend was going to be week 2. Clemson at Georgia Tech, South Carolina against Vandy. Even knowing what we know about these two teams. Because these are two teams that at the end of last year, I said are going to be problems next year. If Diego Pavia does get what he wants and get to play another year at Vandy, that's a problem. If what I think is true about Brent Key and Georgia Tech is true about Brent Key at Georgia Tech's going to be a problem. But I can't imagine that either one of you, South Carolina or Clemson, thought that coming into week 2, you were going to be not just on upset alert, but your spreads in both of those games were going to be hanging out around a field goal difference. And in fairness, Georgia Tech gets 3 at the crib for being at home, but that is still, in fact, I'm gonna go look and see if that line has moved because it's jumped. I've seen it jumped up and down a couple of times. BetMGM right now, which is the sports book I kind of use as the centerpiece. BetMGM has Clemson minus 3.5. Let's find the Vanderbilt South Carolina line real quick. That's not how you spell Vanderbilt. That's why my computer beeped at me. Vanderbilt South Carolina is a 5.5 point favorite against Vandy at the crib this weekend. You get 3 points for being at the house. That means Vegas thinks you are a safety better than the Vanderbilt Commodores. And again, probably the best the Vanderbilt Commodores have ever looked. But if I'd have told you when the hype was there, preseason, when we did realistic ceilings and floors, and a large number of you tried to sell me on the ceiling for South Carolina being 10-2, if I'd have told you that you were under a safety threat of Vanderbilt preseason, I assume many of you would have pushed back. Just like had I told Clemson fans, you're going to Atlanta, a 3-point favorite over the Rec. You'd have pushed back on that. Yeah, Rob, fine. Like maybe they're good. Maybe Brent Key's the guy, but like, come on, they're still Tech. Until they're not Tech, they're still Tech. So where have you landed on this? Again, I pointed out, I've watched the wire-to-wire / offsides upset pick game going on for 5 years now. And by the week, when I would come in and check the text line, by the week, you'd have a host of at least South Carolina fans out of hate and nothing else picking Clemson as their upset pick to lose. So far, and it is only Wednesday, but so far there's been one person who's done that. And I don't think it's because all the Gamecock fans are like, hell yeah, Georgia Tech's going to get run by Clemson. I think it's more along the lines of that game is based on you get the amount of points that the upset is worth, right? So like the bigger the upset that you pick, the more points you get. You get 3 points if Georgia Tech beats Clemson. Is that worth it in that game? No, right? Like when contests are on the line, yeah, you're playing by the points. And even South Carolina fans are like, that's not it. That's not it. That's not how it works. All right, let's get a couple of texts that have been sent in on the Hub City Spartanburger text line, 844-326-3663. Let's do a little textual healing here on the show. This one came in like 6 different parts, so I'm going to do my best to read them all straight. Here is the text that came in that last segment. Hey, Rob, Clemson fan here. It seems like there is something going on that's not being addressed with the program as a whole. It's not just the offense against Troy that was off. The whole team was off. It seemed like someone else started calling plays in the third quarter and they did great. Then somehow someone else took it over in the fourth quarter and they were mediocre. Looks like a communication problem. If they don't fix whatever it is, they're getting smoked Saturday. So this kind of plays into the conversation that has been going on about Garrett Riley and Dabo Swinney. I've said already, Garrett Riley's in a bad spot right now, in my opinion. Garrett Riley's in a bad spot. And here's what I mean by that. We've all heard already that, and I've brought it up, I don't know how many times I've recited the quote. Dabo Swinney said, we're not bringing Garrett Riley here to run the Garrett Riley offense. We're bringing Garrett Riley here to run the Clemson offense. And this is where the frustration, at least for me, has come, in that this offense hasn't evolved. It hasn't changed. It's just been what it's been for a few years now. And that's not going to work. Like, it's on film. It's on tape. DCs get time to figure you out. And it does, like, unless you have, because I did get told by a Clemson fan, well, why did it work in 2018? Why did it work in 2019? Because you had the elite caliber athletes at that point. Because you had elite athletes. You had all-time athletes at that point. You don't have that now. And I know we can say it's because of the NIL, it's because of the portal, it's because this, it's because of that. But we've also said a number of times, with Dabo Swinney's not refusal to, but with Dabo Swinney's cautious, limited approach to the portal, that's got to be part of it. And then there is the part of it, like Nick Saban has said, that with NIL and the portal, talent is spread all around. So Garrett Riley's in a bad spot. If what I believe to be true is true, that is to say, Dabo says, here's the plays you call. Not like when you call them, but like, here's the playbook. And you play within the confines of this playbook. We don't want anything outside of that, right? And that's why it's the Clemson offense. That's why it's bubble screens and all that. Here's our plays. You call them in the order you want, but you're playing these plays. You're calling these plays. If that is the case, and I know to some degree that many of you Clemson fans are dumping it on Garrett Riley. I'm on your message boards, man. I'm deep diving with you. I go look at the message boards. It's, oh, Garrett's got to go. Garrett's got to go. Garrett's got to go. These plays were the same. It's the same schemes, tactics, plays, play calls, the same things that were happening before Garrett Riley got there, right? So why does that put Garrett Riley in a bad spot? It puts Garrett Riley in the sacrificial lamb place. It puts Garrett in the sacrificial lamb spot. It puts Garrett in the spot where if Clemson loses to Georgia Tech this weekend, you're 1-2. You've lost 2 games against Power 5 opponents, and you struggled against Troy. If it gets to the point where, like it did in Tallahassee last year with Florida State, where the AD goes, we have to make a move just to quiet the people down, just to settle down the masses. Who do you think's getting the axe dropped? Dabo? Absolutely not. It'll be Garrett Riley. And it'll be on you, Clemson fans, because y'all are blaming this whole thing on him as if Dabo didn't say he's not here to run the Garrett Riley offense. He's here to run the Clemson offense. So I don't know if something changed in the play calling. What I think, Texter, happened, what I think is Troy just started running out of gas. I think they started running out of gas. I think Clemson eventually was able to just outlast, out-stamina, out-condition, out-muscle Troy. And then once that happened, once you got into the fourth quarter, once you had a lead, once it was obvious that Troy was out of gas, then you went back to playing the game the way that you should play an FCS level team, right? Like we're not gonna pull out all the stops. We're just gonna do what we got to do to win. South Carolina kind of felt like the opposite. Felt like in the first quarter, second quarter, their offense just didn't click. I don't think it was on play calling. Again, I'd like to see more. As I've said already, and I said this after the Tech game, I'd like to see more designed for Lenora Sellers, but that wasn't any different than VTech. I also think SC State just ran out of gas, and I do think South Carolina started to click a little bit better in the second half, and I think that was because of the 2 Vakari Swain punt returns. The fact that now we got a lead, now we can calm down a little bit. It was a home opener for South Carolina. Now we can calm down. The nerves are backseat. There's if you play your first game on the road, as South Carolina did, you have 2 first game jitter games. Your first game, and then your first game back at the crib. That was your first game back at the crib. I give a little bit more credit. That wasn't for Clemson's first game at the crib. You played the week before that. And as I said to Horvey last night, if you can't, after getting beat after getting owned in week 1, if you can't pop off week 2 against Troy and go hang a 70 burger on their head, that tells me you got deeper problems than just whether your offense clicks or not. Texas says, Rob, not worried. Feels like Carolina has been here before. Last season, they struggled several times in the beginning, got dumped on by Ole Miss. If you're a Carolina fan, you know anything can happen. Yeah, that's fair, Texter. But as we said all off season, do the expectations of this team not make this year different? Right? Like not make this year. I get it. You had struggles early in the year last year. But just by way of being successful, by way of being the Alabama game or the LSU game going your way shy of being a playoff team last year, and even with the schedule being certainly the strongest second half schedule in football, one of the, in my opinion, toughest 3 or 4 football schedules in America, the expectations are higher too. And even if this is the best Vanderbilt team that Vandy's ever had, nobody's going to ask, oh, can Georgia beat Vandy? Can Texas beat Vandy? It's just assumed that they will. How do you get there?
They might ask, can Alabama beat Vandy?
Yeah, that's a different story, though. And on top of that, outside of me, I don't think there's very many people that were saying, oh, Alabama's a playoff team. Like, of the 4 of us here at the station, I think I'm the only one that picked them to be there. Of course, then they go out and lay an egg in week 1, or is Florida State a playoff team? And we all got it wrong. I don't know. We'll find out. Translated property football.
Hey, I picked Florida State.
That's fair. You did.
Yeah.
You did. There weren't many of you. There just weren't. Texas said, Rob, if you had a weekend show, I'd be a regular caller. Weekday mornings are terribly busy, but I am incredibly nervous about this game. I thought the last 2 games, I thought the team would be in better position by this time. The team looks sloppy and unprepared. If it was not for Lenoris's athleticism, we wouldn't have won either of the last 2 games. I have not been confident about a UST team since Connor Shaw was quarterback. Again, it's fair. And for the record,
Connor Shaw, the best quarterback of all time for South Carolina.
I mean, Lenora Sellers is right there. But
not yet. No, he's not.
But
I mean, he has a potential, yes. But right now, Connor Shaw is number 1.
Humbly disagree. We'll talk about that later.
Well, you weren't here, were you?
No, but I was doing sports radio in the South. So,
yeah, and I was doing sports radio here.
There you go. Sorry. I'm sorry, everybody. I was wrong. Lonzo was geographically closer than me. That's on me.
Absolutely.
That's on me.
Absolutely.
He's got it. I'm wrong. Look, I get it.
I was also doing a Gamecocks sports show. So, I mean, there was
doing
that
an SEC sports show.
Right. So that still makes me closer.
So, Jacob, what I will say this, I understand being trigger shy if you're a South Carolina fan, because I've seen the expectations go up and then have the legs kicked out, up, legs kicked out, up, legs kicked out. I get it. This year's supposed to be different, right? Like, this is supposed to be the year that's different. And here's the reality. If you don't eventually draw a line in the sand, put the foot down, 10 toes down with your full chest, say, this year's different, or we got to be different, it's just going to be the same thing. This year's got to be different. I'm not saying 12-0, 11-1, 10-2. I said 9-3. 9-3 gets you into the playoffs as far as I'm concerned this year. But this game's got to be one of those wins. And I'm looking at this game going, I'm way less confident now about this game than I was before the season started. Is that fair? All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, water cooler cheat sheet, top 3 sports stories you need to know. We'll take a deeper look at the actual numbers behind these 2 games this weekend, as well as start setting you up for the weekend slate. All of that comes up after a guy who is geographically close to your heart. Lonzo with a sports flash.
In a good way. I send raspberry sounds in Rob's direction. I'm not going to do it, though. Eagles defensive lineman Jalen Carter will not be suspended by the NFL for spitting on Cowboys. That's why I'm not doing it. Quarterback Dak Prescott Carter was ejected from the game before playing a single play, which the NFL says will count as the 1-game suspension. He would have been served. Carter also forfeited his week 1 game check worth more than $57,000. The Braves lost to Chicago last night 6-1. Spencer Strider took his 13th loss of the season despite giving up just 6 hits and 2 runs in 6 innings while striking out 8. The Braves had just 4 hits on the night, including going 1 for 6 with runners in scoring position and only 1 hit for extra bases. Chicago Cubs, who hold the number 1 wildcard position in the National League, have sent all-star right fielder Kyle Tucker to the 10-day injured list with a strained left calf. The move makes Tucker, who is batting .270 with 22 home runs, eligible to return September 16th. I'm not invisible, although I will be for the next couple minutes.
You're on official Rob Brown lockdown. Unfiltered sports talk manufactured locally for the Carolinas. This is the Rob Brown Show. Only on
That boy is good.
Yeah. The Rob Brown Show back on your radio. It's the fan.
It sounded strange. You all right?
Yeah, I don't like. I'm like, the voice is just strained today, and there's no reason for it. Like, I didn't do anything to deserve this. I didn't do any. I went home yesterday. I had a lunch appointment yesterday. I went home. I did some work on the computer. In fact, I took the computer. I did it. Yeah, maybe this is what it was. I took the computer. I built the fire pit in the backyard. And even though I obviously not quite cold enough for a fire yet, I went outside. I sat in the backyard around the fire pit. I built myself a little desk on the fire pit. I took the dogs outside, put them on their runner, and sat outside and worked in the sun for like an hour and a half. It was gorgeous outside yesterday. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't even have phone calls yesterday. The wife got home from work yesterday. We hung out for a little while. We watched a little TV. We went to bed. I watched the Yankees-Tigers game. I watched a little bit of Braves-Cubs. I did my interview on BetMGM tonight, and I went to bed. I woke up this morning, and I sound like I smoked a pack of cigs yesterday. I did not. I don't know what's happening. But
it could be the cool air mixing with the warmer air later. It's that time of year when everyone around here starts getting sick because we have no idea how to dress correctly.
Correct, or as I call it, hot toddy season. It's hot toddy season, people.
I don't know what that means, but it sounds dirty.
It's a drink. It's a fantastic drink. It's sweet tea with honey and whiskey. Hot toddy, it's delightful. It's hot toddy season. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot we're talking about here. Why did I do the David Letterman pen tap?
I don't know. Violently, by the way.
Ladies and gentlemen, hey. That's a bad David Letterman.
Yeah, your beard isn't long enough for that. It's got to be down to your.
Oh, I made a decision. The wife's going out of town next weekend. She's going up to the Hamptons for a bachelorette party. Her BFF's bachelorette party is in the Hamptons because, and so I'm going through a bit of an identity crisis right now. Like, she pointed this out to me, and I get it. Like, I don't know if I showed this yet. I got a chain. Right? Like, I got a chain. I bought some new rings. I got like this really dope skull ring that I wear when I go on my motorcycle now. I also own a motorcycle. So this is your midlife? Yeah, it is. I think I'm having it. And I just don't have Corvette money, So it's like it manifests in other ways. Like, I genuinely think I'm having my midlife identity crisis a little bit.
Please, let me warn you against this. No neck or face tattoos. Don't do it.
No, I'm not going that bananas.
Don't do it.
Like, I don't know who I am. I just know I'm not neck or tattoo guy.
Okay.
All right? Neck or face tattoo guy. I'll tell you what I am doing next week, and I want you all to mentally prepare for this. The wife's gone for like 7 days. She's going on the extended bachelorette trip. Fine, great. I think she's going to have a great time. Because I have that many days sans the wife, because it's not all that. She goes to a bachelorette trip. She comes home for a night. The next morning she gets up and she's going to Charleston for a work trip for like 4 days. So she's really gone for like 9 days. Because she's going to be gone for those 9 days, I'm going to do something that I haven't done since Halloween of 2016. I'm going to clean shave next week. I'm going clean shave. I'm going babyface next week because I haven't in legitimately 8 years. And because I'm the lightest I've been since high school, I think that I've gotten rid of chins number 2 and 3, which is the only reason I've ever kept a beard. I think I'm going to clean shave next week just to see what it looks like. And if it sucks, I'll grow it right back out.
I'm scared.
I know, me too.
Yeah.
I'm terrified.
I don't know.
Because the last time I did it, she said that I looked like she said I looked like the tenor singer in a Baptist quartet. And I was like,
you've been dressing
fair.
That way lately too. So it will work out perfectly. So we'll see you clean shaven one day and it'll just be your picture for the rest of the week.
It'll
just
be
your picture.
Probably.
Picture with a beard for the rest of the week.
The stream may just be like an AI avatar of me if it looks bad. It'll be next Friday, the 19th. I'll be in here clean shaven. She leaves on the 18th. I'm not going to get up early enough in the morning to do it. But she leaves on the 18th. So the 19th, I'm going to come in here clean shaven. We'll see what it might go horribly wrong. It might be a real bad look, but we're going to find out. It's been 7 years.
I wish you good luck.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I do too. That doesn't mean I'll have it. We'll find out. I think I've gotten rid of chins 2 and 3. I think I'm down to like a half an extra chin. That's just because I'm 40. Like, I think I got rid of enough of it that I can give it a go.
I do remember in its ancient history, but when I lost a ton of weight, I tried that.
Yeah.
Still didn't work for me, but my head's huge and yours is not. So you should be all right.
We'll see. All right. Jacob said, dude, I want a hot toddy, but I've got to drive for my job. Boo. Yeah, no, you're not allowed to have one. So Jacob, I'll tell you what, I'll have one this afternoon for you. Cause I'm having a brewski, early dinner with a buddy of mine today.
Are you breaking out the muscle shirt so all the chains and stuff?
It's not even that big.
Yeah, but
it's little. I do have a pendant coming for it today, though.
A pendant?
Yeah, a little pendant.
No, I know what a pendant is, but I don't know why you would ruin that chain.
Little compass rose. That's my thing. That's my thing. A little compass.
All right.
I'm excited. All right, we got to stop. We got to get to it. All right, it is 7:06 in the morning, ladies and gentlemen. We got a lot of sports we got to get to. We're talking about the weekend upcoming, obviously. We're talking about South Carolina taking on Vandy. We're talking about Clemson taking on Georgia Tech. There's a bunch of other ranked games that we have got to get into. We got a text from Tiger Lefty that starts with the words, I'm bleeping nervous for Saturday. And he actually wrote bleeping. So I respect that, Lefty Tiger. It's a text. It's uncensored. Say whatever you want to say. We'll read the rest of and react to that text from Lefty Tiger coming up a little bit later on this week. Got another texter that said, I don't agree with running Sellers Morgan State. Why? I'll tell you why. Coming up here in a little while as well. We'll do a little more textual healing later on in the show. But it is 7:07 in the morning. You have less than 53 minutes until you've got to be to the office. And now that we are just one day away from the start of the next week of National Football League football and collegiate football, we're all just trying to kill time. We're all just trying to kill a little time until football arrives and graces us once again with its presence. And if you're going to kill time at the office, I know what you're going to do. You're going to take that break, walk down the long hallway, head on over to the employee break room and stand by that water cooler. And you're just going to wait for Scott or Bill or Tom or Laura or Christy or whoever you talk your sports with to show up, to come in, to talk sports. But to do that, you got to know what's going on. Here's the good news. The good news is we do this.
Are you ready for the playbook of the peculiar, the almanac of the absurd, and the encyclopedia of the extraordinary? Well, you better be, because we're diving headfirst into the 3 top stories that will have your coworkers saying, "What kind of place is this?" First bathroom break.
No.
Here we go. Welcome to the water cooler cheat sheet on the Fan Upstate.
Tis indeed the water cooler cheat sheet, the top 3 sports stories that you need to know before you get to the office this morning and talk sports with your coworkers, your manager, your boss, whoever you talk sports with. When you do, ladies and gentlemen, this is what you're going to be talking about to allow us to dive right in with item number 1. Baseball. Got a couple of baseball stories.
You're costing me my fade. You're doing it on purpose.
I thought you said you liked it when the music went all the way to the end.
I like the fade right there. It makes it more dramatic when you hear the water cooler.
I just ruined Lonzo's day already.
I quit.
7:09 in the morning. Ruined his day already. Let's go to baseball for a couple of stories. We'll start the Atlanta Braves 6-1 losers yesterday to the Chicago Cubs. The series is a 3-gamer. They have split the first 2 1-1. The rubber stamp game coming up today in Atlanta, Georgia. Spencer Strider. 2 things about Spence. Number 1, speaking of clean shaven, he showed up clean shaven yesterday. He'd been rocking this badass Wyatt Earp mustache all season. He's also 5-13 on the season. So maybe that's what some of us do. Those of us that are facial hair inclined. When things are testing you, challenging you, you don't want to overreact in the way that you live or talk or behave. So just shave your face and see if that changes anything. It did not. 6 innings, 6 hits allowed. He did just give up 2 earned runs through those 6 innings, strike out 8 in the relief or in the effort. But unfortunately, giving up those 2 allowed the Cubs to take that lead. I really don't understand why he took the L and not Diaz, who pitched 0.2 innings and gave up 4 runs in that period of time, walking 3 of them in. But hey, I'm not a stat maker. From the dish, the Atlanta Braves had just 4 hits on the night last night. Only 1 extra base hit from Ronnie Acuna Jr., his 12th double on the season. Jurickson Profar had the only RBI of the game. The team went 1 of 6 with runners in scoring position. Sticking with baseball, Kyle Schwarber became the first National League player to reach the 50 home run mark last night. The Phillies have won the first 2 of a 4-game set against the NL East rival Mets. They are now 9 games in control of that division with about 11 games remaining left in the schedule. So unless the Phillies lose out and the Mets win out, it does look like the Philadelphia Phillies, as predicted, will capture the NL. As predicted in season. Preseason, we all had the Braves, but they whatever. Shut up. Nobody cares. It is the first time in his career that Schwarber was able to capture the 50 home run mark. For the Chicago Cubs, they placed all-star right fielder Kyle Tucker on the 10-day DL because of a strained left calf. Cubs manager Craig Counsell said before yesterday's game against Atlanta that he had a good day on Monday, but during the day Tuesday, still had some mild discomfort, did not get any better, didn't have any progress. They said that he and the team were both a little bit uncomfortable as we edge closer to the playoffs, with the Cubs currently holding the number 1 wild card spot in the National League with risking it. So they decided to go ahead and give him a bit of a backseat. Understandable. I get it. We'll see what happens with that. Let's jump into item number 2. It's because I messed up the fade, isn't it? It's because I threw the whole show off.
All right. So, and I haven't entirely gotten used to this. We have 3 screens, but if you lose your mouse, you lose your cursor, you have to find it on one of the screens, and the screens are not next to you. And I couldn't find it. I'm old. Whatever.
What a struggle, ladies and gentlemen. What a struggle. All right. A 2-0 victory last night over Japan marked the first win for Team USA footy in the last 8 tries. They were in a 7-game winless streak, including dropping a very disappointing 0-2 loss to South Korea on Saturday. Last night, the American team tinkered with the lineup a little bit. Mauricio Pochettino played with some of the starters, moved some starters into reserve, etc. And Team USA looked good. Early in the game, Japan was very clearly playing on the front foot. They did hold a majority of the possession out of the gate. But inside of the first half hour, Alejandro Zendejas was able, off of a beaut of a serve into the middle, was able to 180 no-scope with the volley into the top left corner to put the Americans on the board. Folarin Balogun will get the second goal for Team USA 64 minutes into the contest to give the Americans the 2-0 scoreline that they would finish with. On the other side of the field, Matthew Freese got the start in front of the net for the Americans, and he was spectacular. Wanya Ito had a close range effort just before the half that I genuinely thought made it 1-1 at the time. But Matt Freese with the reflex save was spectacular. It was one of 3 or 4 incredible saves that Matt Freese had last night. He may have done a lot to moving himself into the GK1 spot as we move closer to the World Cup next summer. There were some other moves that got made. Chris Richards, Alex Freeman, and Christian Roldan, Zendejas, and Balogun joined the starting lineup in place of Serginho Dest, Diego Luna, Sebastian Berhalter, Tim Weah, and Josh Sargent, who had all been starting. All of them went to the bench. Most of them came in relief in the second half, which I actually kind of like the move from Mauricio Pochettino. He did say to reporters before the game that there's a lot of drama that's not really drama around the program right now. He's like, it's not as bad as y'all are making it out to be, which makes sense because, again, we're going to latch on. We're going to go find blood wherever blood is to be found in the media world. I get it. That being said, there's been a lot of drama. He cannot say that there's been no drama around this team. Didn't look like it last night. Last night was the most complete and creative performance we have seen out of the American men's football team in a very long time. And look, you got 2 more friendlies coming up in October, and then you've got a couple on the schedule for early 2026. And then it's World Cup time in our own house, people. So good to see. Now, the question mark is going to be the biggest word in all of sports: consistency. They look good. They look creative. They were moving the ball well. They were, instead of taking the old spray and pray offense, which had kind of become a thing for a minute there, playing the ball specifically up the left-hand side, using Pulisic as a mid who was playing off mid and drawing defenses to him, opened up a number of opportunities inside the box. I was quite shockingly, for the first time in a very long time, quite pleased with what I saw out of the U.S. soccer team last night. 2-0 win over Japan. First time that they've beat a world top 25 ranked team in a long freaking time. So, hey, silver linings, people. Maybe we grow. Maybe we grow. Maybe we won't be quite the dog we thought we were going to be getting whipped in the World Cup next summer, but we'll find out. A lot of footy left to be played between here and there. Let's go to item number 3. 2 stories out of college football for you, both of which are going to be discussed in their own individual segments a little bit later on in the show. Last week, we told you that the NCAA had announced that the FBS Oversight Committee had voted to move to and approve a winter transfer portal window that moved from December to January, shifting a 10-day period that will now start on January 2nd. They also eliminated the spring transfer window. So now college football players have one window to transfer in. It is 10 days long, and it starts on January 2nd. Now, for those of you who are paying attention to the college football calendar, you may realize that the College Football National Championship is being played on Jan 20 now, being played on January 20th. Ryan Day has now become the first coach to speak out against the new policy. At his weekly news conference yesterday, he told reporters, quote, "No, I do not think it is a good idea at all. And the conversations we have with the Big Ten coaches, I think the majority of them agree. I just don't quite understand how teams that are playing in the playoffs are expected to make the decisions and sign their upcoming players while they're still getting ready to play games. It doesn't make any sense to me." As the schedule is set up, if the January transfer window is finalized and approved, it would open one day after the college football playoff quarterfinals are completed. This year's CFB semifinals, the Fiesta Bowl and the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, are scheduled for January 8th and 9th. The transfer portal window will then close on January 11th. It has been already discussed at length that coaches and administrators have reached out to the FBS Oversight Committee and are seeking a solution to how to work this out. They said, great, okay, it's great to get it out of December. It's great to get it out of December because in December, coaching changes haven't been made. A lot of teams still were going through bowl practices, bowl games, like we were dealing with it. You move to January, at least all of those challenges are gone. However, for the teams that are playing in and making a run through the college football playoffs, it doesn't get a lot easier. If you're Ohio State, you make it out of the quarterfinals, you're getting ready to take on Texas in the semifinals. Ryan Day's also got to be dealing with the transfer portal window because as much as we like to say, hey, coach, just dial in on your team. That's not really how it works. We all know that. Coaches are the biggest part. Along with the GM, coaches are the biggest part of roster management. So, of course, they're not going to say, yeah, I'll be able to give all my attention to the transfer portal, which, as we have seen now, has become impressively more impressive in terms of its impact on college football. Am I the only one? And I am not a college administrator. I haven't been in college in a long time. So I'm sure that there are probably some calendar dates that aren't ringing a bell for me right now. But do we not just move it back to January 21st and let it run for the back 10 days of January? Do we not just open it up the day after the national championship? Or do we not move it back to Jan 21? And if you want to get rid of the spring window, cool. Make it Jan 21, run it through February 11th. Let it be a 3-week window. Make it a 2-week window. Take it from the 21st, the day after the Natty. Take it from the 21st through the end of January, the first week of February. Let it be a 14-day window. And, okay, problem solved. Like, I'm sure there's stuff about, college course registrations and stuff like that I'm not thinking about. But if you need to solve something here, is that, like, am I missing something? Is there a reason that that's just not an easy solution? Or I don't know. There is one more story that I want to get to, and we're going to do it in the next segment. The College Sports Commission had to send out a correction to the tune of a 35 point some odd $1 million math error that they made. And I think it says something not great, Bob, about the College Sports Commission before it really even kicks into high gear. What was the error? And what does it say about the College Sports Commission and the entity that we are supposed to trust with the disciplinary enforcement of college football? Well, it's a good thing you're listening because I'm going to tell you in the next segment. Rob Alonso and you, the Rob Brown Show's on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. Yes, Zach, that is the take. Why can't we just push it? I do not understand. I concur with that. I don't get it. Ugh. Oh, man. That's what you want to hear this early. BRB, dudes.
So I think that's a question. Who did Mac Jones used to play for? The fact that I had to think about it.
The reason we were talking about Mac Jones during the break is that Kyle Shanahan has now said that Brock Purdy is questionable to play against the New Orleans Saints this weekend, and that if he is unable to go, the 49ers backup quarterback is former Jacksonville Jaguar, Mac Jones.
Do you know, and this is not, although you do this to me all the time, as a knower of ball, do you know the backup quarterback for every NFL team without looking?
Probably a large percentage of them. I don't know that I would know all of them. I think I know a pretty good percentage of them. Yeah, I'd say a good percent. Not all. I probably know more than most people, but not as much as like Shefty. Like I'm not there.
Because there are names that pop out, and I'm like, they're still in football? I'm just completely shocked.
Mac Jones is like a good career backup guy.
Dude,
like
I had no idea.
He's going to be like Flacco. He's going to be a backup quarterback till he's 50.
He's never going to be like Flacco. Flacco won a Super Bowl.
All right, let's get to this College Sports Commission story right quick. The College Sports Commission sent a correction to schools on Friday. They issued a statement a handful of days ago where they said that they had thus far approved of $79.8 million nationally in name, image, and likeness deals. Of course, the College Sports Commission is the operator of the NIL Go Clearinghouse, where all NIL deals over a $600 value have to be sent and approved by the school. You have to submit not just the financial terms of the deal, but also what that student has to do to meet the NIL qualifications in terms of providing a good and/or service for a company that provides a good and/or service to the community at large. So they said that they had approved $79.8 million of NIL deals. Turns out that's not true. Turns out that the total value of deals cleared thus far is $35.42 million, meaning that the College Sports Commission claimed they had cleared over $40 million more in NIL money than they had actually cleared. Now, why is this a big deal? The College Sports Commission said that it was a clerical error in reporting data provided by Deloitte, which is a company that helped them develop the NIL Go platform. They said that basically this company that helped them develop NIL Go provided them with either incorrect data or provided them with a set of information that they misconstrued somehow.
It's like a little, underneath skimming type thing going on.
I'm not running that far.
We don't know where this money came from. It was a clerical error.
No. This is not money that has changed hands. This is the $79.8 million is the total amount of NIL deals that have been entered into the platform, not all of which have been cleared. That $40+ million is money that is been put in, money has not been put into the platform. Let me be really clear about how I phrase this. When an athlete agrees to an NIL deal with an entity, if it is valued at over $600, they must take the deal and submit it to the NIL Go platform. The NIL platform collects the data, organizes it, sends it to the College Sports Commission. The College Sports Commission then looks at every deal that is submitted and either approves or denies that deal. This NIL deal is acceptable and appropriate. You can engage in it. This NIL deal is not. So far, athletes around America have submitted $79.8 million worth of NIL contracts, not money, but contracts to the system. The College Sports Commission has approved $35.42 million. The rest of that $79.8 million is still in the platform, in the portal, waiting for review and either approval or denial. The CSC said in their report that 6,090 deals had been approved, not the previously reported number of 8,359, which is the total number of deals in the system to date. So, here's why I bring this story up. Two reasons primarily. The first reason that I bring this story up is to make the point that across all of college athletics. We have talked about the $4 million deal of Carson Beck at Miami. We've talked about a couple of $2 and $1 million deals across the entire landscape of college football. Because I had a buddy of mine in week one, as a matter of fact, after the Nebraska guy. He said, you know what? I'm done with college football. And I said, why? And he said, because I'm not going to let a bunch of teenage millionaires ruin my Saturday. And I said, buddy, how many millionaires do you think you have on your team? Like, how many guys on your team do you think you're making $1 million? On Nebraska, the answer might be one. It might be Raiola. You don't have another millionaire on that team. I would say even the teams in the SEC and the Big Ten, most of them might have two or three guys, like the big names. I'm not talking about Iowa State. I'm talking Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, whatever. Those schools might have one millionaire playing on their team, right? Like Miami's got, I think they have one. They have Carson Beck. Now, there may be some 100,000-aires on your team, but this to me, assuming, Texter said, Rob, it's pronounced Deloitte. I am not proud of myself for knowing that. I shan't judge you for not knowing.
I'm sorry, did I miss you mispronounce Deloitte and Touche? Is Touche still part of it, or is it just Deloitte?
It just says Deloitte, which I assume was Deloitte.
Okay, so because the Touche wasn't there, I didn't catch the Deloitte.
Deloitte is a leading global professional services network providing audit, consulting, tax, and advisory services to businesses. It is one of the big four accounting firms. Well, that's why I didn't know it. It's a bunch of math nerds, and I don't make enough money to need an
They're always
accountant.
mentioned like for the Oscars or something like that, where they compile.
Had no idea.
Numbers for stuff.
They let's see, external audits and assurance on financial and non-financial information, advisory services for strategy, technology, and business processes, tax advisory and compliance services, and advisory on risk in financial matters. Yeah, that's why I don't know who the hell they are. I don't make enough money to any accounting or tax responsibility stuff. All right.
By the way, Ethan Greenridge from Northwestern is a senior offensive tackle with a $1.2 million NIL.
Yes,
valuation.
and he was also an enormous story when that happened. There's one for like Texas Tech too, like a left tackle who got $1 million deal, and they're brought up.
They're really important
because they're right, but they're also dramatically the exception to the rule, right? Like dramatically the exception. The point that I'm making here is even if we include deals that have been submitted but not yet approved, the entire college landscape is responsible for less than $80 million in NIL. That's everybody. That's every football, basketball, baseball, softball, soccer, hockey field, hockey, lacrosse, swimming and diving, track and field team out there. Less than $80 million in NIL. So for the folks that, there's millionaires everywhere ruining college sports, and they're not. No, there's not. There's $80 million in the portal right now. 80 million total. And by the way, only about half of that, slightly less than half of that, has actually been approved so far.
The guys that are making big money are the stars on Saturday, and I don't think they're playing less hard once they get paid.
I agree.
It does seem to happen some in the NFL, but not in college, at least not yet.
I again, not disagree. I think the only point that I'm making here is, for those of you that, like my buddy last Saturday who said, I'm out because I'm not letting a bunch of teenage millionaires ruin my Saturday, you, if you're a Nebraska fan, might be letting one. You're a South Carolina fan, you might have one millionaire on your team, Lenoris. If you're a Clemson fan, you might have $1 million on your team in Cade. But there's not this isn't a world where every team has 10 millionaires running around playing college football. If you are a top-notch program, you might have one, maybe two at most. You see what I'm saying? It's not the big deal. And I know $80 million seems like a lot of money, but we are talking about the entire NCAA, which includes tens of thousands of athletes in all shapes, forms, and sizes. And we are talking about less than $80 million that has been submitted. Only 35.5 has been approved. So relax a little bit. It's not ruining college football. All right? Take a chill pill, Phil. That's what my mom used to say. Back after this on the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate.
You must chill.
I don't think taking children is like cool stuff.
Oh, excuse me just a minute, guys. Be right back. I can indeed dig it. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The Rob Brown Show is on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. Rob Brown, the Great Malonzo, and you. Now, let me get to the second part of this conversation. For the record, Texas said I could be wrong here, but didn't Ohio State spend $20 million on their national championship winning roster last year?
Texas spent more. So, and
I don't
they
know,
didn't win.
Like, why is that such a big bragging point to you?
Because people want to point out this stat, like that's the reason why Ohio State won when another team, maybe two teams, spent more. So spending doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to win, because the reason why people have hated the Yankees forever is because they spend so much money. How many pennants have they won? How many World Series have they won? This is the day and age that we live in. Get past it. They're getting paid. It doesn't mean the chemistry on the field is going to be there. It doesn't guarantee a championship. Look at what happened to Florida State 2 years ago, or was it last year? They spent a bunch of money and was not good. So you still have to have good coaching. You still have to have gelling on the field. You still have to have a winning program with winning history.
I do not think that you are entirely wrong, but I do not think it is solely as an attack. I think a lot of people primarily...
Listen, I read minds, and that's exactly what they mean.
Okay, well, I'm going to say it anyway. I think a lot of people that bring that point up are more utilizing as a look how much money is being spent, right? Like you just happens to be that you and because I've heard the same thing about Texas a lot of times. In fact, if anything, if anybody's being attacked, it's Texas. Ha, you spent all that money and you still lost, right? I've heard that a lot of times, and I think the majority of people who bring up specific teams with specific numbers are less doing it like you bought a championship, and are more doing it, look how much money is injected into the game. Look at how much these kids are making. Now, you're talking about...
I appreciate your outlook. I just think you're wrong about that.
I mean, that's fine. You think I'm wrong about most things.
No, I don't. I think you're awesome. I love working with you. I think you are very good at matching what you wear.
It's not my birthday. Stop.
Okay. All right.
So, yes, that is the report. And I will also point out that the other side of this conversation is this also, we don't know yet if these numbers are down nationally because of the fact that teams can revenue share now. Teams in the power conferences are obligated to revenue share now. And so if NIL businesses know that there's $20.5 million being put into players' pockets by the conferences, by the schools now, will we see a fall off in NIL? Because those are separate numbers, right? The NIL is one thing, and the revenue share is an entirely different number. You can add them together for the amount of money that players are getting, but they are different numbers, two pools of money gathered from different places and utilized separately. So,
according to an article I'm reading, so it's got to be true, Texas is number 1, Texas Tech is number 2.
Yep.
Ohio State is 3.
Yeah, and I talked about Texas Tech last week. That's because they had a alumni that showed up with like a check for however many millions of dollars.
Oregon 4, Texas A&M and Miami are 5, which of course is why Miami is good now because they spent all that money. Michigan and USC are 7. USC is not going to be good, and Michigan lost last week. So, I mean,
all of that being said, I am more concerned about the, quote, clerical error of the College Sports Commission than I am about the numbers that they are errored over. Here's what I mean. This is the outfit that is kind of, or it felt to me like it was kind of a compromise between the people who despise that there is money in the game, but recognize it's not going anywhere, and the other side who are like, I don't care. I don't care that there's money in the game. It's still college football, and it's great. This was, or at least it felt to me, like it was a bit of a compromise between those two sides. This was the folks in the middle saying, all right, here's what we'll do. Because there is this much money in the game, what we will do is we will come up with a neutral commission. We will come up with a neutral group of people. And in order to make sure that because NIL isn't going anywhere, that NIL is not abused, cheated, worked around, etc., we will have a panel of people whose job will be to A, enforce the NIL rules, and B, to ensure that when the NIL rules are broken, the schools that break them are punished appropriately for it. Now, there was a lot left on the table to be desired. I pointed that out. Like, I would like to know what the disciplinary structure is, what the disciplinary process is. I would like to know what the inevitable appeals process is going to be. I would like to know, is this we're going to make the punishment situation by situation? Is there going to be like a table of contents for punishments? If your punishment is above this many millions of dollars, then it's this punishment. If it's above this number, then it's this, and that number, it's that. Like, what's it going to be? And we never really got all of that. But at least the commission's there. And if nothing else, they said, look, it's a work in process. We're going to have to figure stuff out as stuff comes out. So at least we got something to work towards. And the very first story that we get out of them, is, hey, we made a $35 million accounting error, right? And sure, you can say it's on Deloitte, and that maybe. And by the way, there was a statement from Deloitte that said, quote, "We take full responsibility for this reporting error." Sure. I mean, maybe they do. Maybe that's true. Or maybe the NCAA is paying them so much damn money that they're like, hey, we need you guys to be the bad guys here. And they went, oh, how many zeros on that paycheck? You got it. I'll be the bad guy for enough zeros on a paycheck. 100% I'll be the bad guy for the right amount of zeros on a paycheck. So
will we be able to tell?
Heel turns can be sponsored, is all I'm saying. All right. You want to sponsor a Rob Brown Show heel turn? Call the folks downstairs, make it happen. We can work something out. This is supposed to be the organization. This is supposed to be the entity that is going to keep everything straight and good and pure in college football. This is supposed to be the entity that was going to make sure that while we are going to allow kids the opportunity to make money, while we are going to allow kids the opportunity to use their name, image, and likeness to profit and get paid, et cetera, we're also going to make sure that there's a set of rules. Those rules are followed. The discipline is enacted when those rules are broken. We want to make sure that while some schools will obviously have bigger and more boosters, and therefore will have deeper pockets and more NIL money available to be distributed, that they will have to follow and play by the same rules. It's just like football. At the end of the day, there are some teams that just have bigger, better rosters. Clemson has a bigger, better roster of players than Troy does. But when the ball is kicked off, Troy and Clemson have to play by the same rules on the same field, right? Theoretically, but, referees. They have to play by the same rules on the same field. That's kind of the concept behind the College Sports Commission. It is exclusively about making sure that the field is level, and even if you've got a better roster and you've got more resources, when the kickoff happens, you still got to play by the same rules. And in the first announcement from the College Sports Commission, they're like, hey, we can't do math over here. We have hired a world-famous accounting firm, so famous that I got the name of the accounting firm wrong, and it was immediately corrected by both Lonzo and on the text line. Like, that's how it's an accounting firm. It's an accounting firm that has name recognition.
Right, which is why they should not mess up.
I don't disagree.
Things went downhill when they got rid of Touche.
But here's the other thought. even if that's the case, is there no one at the College Sports Commission who, when that report came through, went, that's not right? And I'm not talking about like a $45 mistake here, right? It's one thing when Rob Brown goes to pay his car payment and I go, oh, I'm missing $65 from my checking account. And then I've got a deep dive where this is $35+ million in what is the most contentious issue in college sports. What is the most polarizing issue in college sports? A $35 million error. And there's not one person, even if you are willing to say that an accounting firm so big, famous, and prestigious that Texters and Lonzo know their name and the correct pronunciation of it. Quick, Lonzo, name me any other accounting firm. Right. You get my point? So assuming that an accounting firm.
I was trying to think of an accounting firm in wrestling, and I couldn't.
Anything.
Yeah, I mean.
Anything. I'd have taken IRS. You didn't even get there.
Acme.
Sure. Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck's accounting firm. The point here is, if you are to have me to believe that the only accounting firm in America that has name recognition made a $35 million mistake, let's say they did. Nobody in the organization that got those numbers before they issued the report looked at it and went, guys, we are off by multiple orders of magnitude here.
By the way, Acme Accounting does exist.
I'm sure it does, but like you didn't say that because you knew that.
Well,
you said that because there is an Acme everything.
It was just a confirmation. That's all.
So I guess the point here for me is this organization was supposed to be a compromise over which I hate money in the game, people, and I don't give a damn how much money's in the game, people. This was supposed to be the compromise. This was supposed to be the middle ground that we went, all right, money in the game, we get that. We can't stop it. But at the same time, we want to make sure everybody's on the level playing field. Everything's on the up. So we're going to prop up this commission that is going to be the watchdog, and they're going to be the accountants, and they're going to be the enforcers. And they are going to have unilateral power to discipline teams who break the rules. And the absolute first thing that happens that they announce is they made a 35. That's not a rounding error, people. That is a mistake with orders of magnitude. That is a decimal spot off by 7 places. Like, that's not good enough, right? How am I supposed to believe? I'm not saying that, oh, we got our first disciplinary decision and I disagree with it. Like, I'm saying this is bare bones minimum. Math, you can't get math right, but I'm expecting you to be able to rein college football in and keep it on the level. That's tough. Texas said, Rob, applying WWE logic, Lonzo is definitely the heel of this show, so I'm down for a Rob Brown heel turn. That's from Spartanburg J. I'll leave it unsaid. Let's take a break. When we come back, next hour of the show, NFL football. We got to get to some big league. We'll do that next. That's after Lonzo gives you a Lombardi Trophy caliber winning sports flash.
I've always said I was the heel of this show, so I don't know why it's a surprise. Eagles defensive lineman Jalen Carter will not be suspended by the NFL for spitting on Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott. Carter was ejected from the game before playing a single play, which the NFL says will count as the one-game suspension. He would have been served. Carter also forfeited his week 1 game check worth more than $57,000. The Braves lost to Chicago last night, 6-1. Spencer Strider took his 13th loss of the season despite giving up just 6 hits and 2 runs in 6 innings while striking out 8. The Braves had just 4 hits in the night, including going 1 for 6 with runners in scoring position and only 1 hit for extra bases. Philly slugger Kyle Schwarber became the first player in the National League to reach 50 home runs last night. The Phillies have won the first 2 of a 4-game set to build their lead in the division to 9 games. It's the first time in Schwarber's career that he's hit 50 home runs in a single season. Rob now has 2 ring lights. Let's see if he notices.
For the News Talk 98.9 WRB Graphic Center, I'm Lori Beatson on the fan upstate.
Hey, sports fans, I'm Mark Brumman, owner of Garage Doors Today. That's right, Garage Doors Today. We proudly serve Greenville, Greer, Spartanburg, and the surrounding counties with fast, reliable, and honest garage door service. Tired of companies showing up late?
I don't know, which heel do you prefer? The heel that's just right out there and you know that dude's a bad guy, or the guy that's that does heelish things and you're not quite sure, you think a turn's coming but you never know?
We offer new garage door packages with Whisper Drive motors that will solve all your garage door headaches. Call Garage Doors today.
Appreciate that, Stephen. I am glorious. You're right. It's the hair.
Upfront pricing, superior products, fast, reliable service, and most reasonable rates around. Garage Doors Today, Greenville.com.
You have 3 ex-wives and your current trophy wife wants a life insurance policy 3 times the size of the policies you had to purchase.
Trying to think who my favorite heel in wrestling of all time is. I mean, MJF is definitely up there because he's so good at it. It's just he's naturally the bad guy.
A $1 million policy should only cost about $100 to $200 per month. Big Lou may have a solution for your previous policies as well. You may even save enough money to lighten the load on your new $1 million policy. Remember, call Big Lou. He's like you, except he's only on number 2. Call Term Provider at 800-700-6898. That's 800-700-6898 for $1 million in term.
My problem is I don't normally cheer for the heel. And I don't think I'm a heel on the other station. I'm just a heel on this station. So I get to play, one and one and one on the other. And we all have a little bit of both in us, probably. Some more so than others. But other than MJF, I can't think of who my favorite heel of all time is.
Ric Flair.
That would be a no for me. Definitely not. As I was saying earlier, I think I prefer a heel that you don't know that they're for sure a heel. That they do heelish things and you think they could turn at any time, and maybe they don't have to turn because they've always been a heel, but they've just fooled everybody. And Rob really wants to be the heel on this show, and he does do it on occasion. But it's only towards me. It's not towards you guys. It's because he sees the heel that I've become, and he wants to be there. And yeah, and it's, not that there can only be one heel. You can have like 2 heels on a show. Yeah. There's one in the afternoon. That's 2 heels right there for sure. They're not baby faces. Come on. Diesel hasn't seen his face in like 20 years, probably. I'm pretty sure when he first started here, he didn't have a beard. It was so long ago, I don't remember. Fresh faced out of college. All right, I don't know who Black Scorpion is, Steven. So,
like black and white Sting.
but he wasn't a heel. He was a hero. Okay, all right, yeah, he wasn't. He was a heel. Was he a heel when he was with the Wolfpack? Kind of. He was a heel in TNA a bunch, like when he's a Joker and stuff.
Pal, buddy, pal, team. buddy, pal, T.
What's your name, dude?
My name is Rob Brown. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, the Rob Brown Show on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. Great to have you, people, as we roll through the four most electrifying hours in sports talk entertainment you will find anywhere. The great one, Lonzo, on the other side of the metaphorical glass, in charge of the ones and the twos, all of the audible sounds of pleasure.
I know how to win.
Entering your ear holes this AM. We are rocking and rolling. We have talked some college football so far. And we will continue to talk college football, obviously, all week long, as this has gone from a week that initially, I'll even say preseason, felt like it would be the first test of, though they should both win, Clemson and South Carolina. I think after this past weekend and after the first 2 weeks for both of these teams, I think it is now fair of and for me to say you're both on upset alert this week. You're both on upset alert. And even though the two teams you are playing are in very similar roles within your respective conferences, Georgia Tech in the ACC, Vanderbilt in the SEC, even though you are in very similar roles, or Georgia Tech and Vandy are in very similar roles within the conferences, these are both not your pappies, that team. It's not Paul Johnson's Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech. It is not old school Vandy. These are two teams that has as much, if not more talent than they've ever had before. They are two teams that have head coaches that are very inspiring to both their fan base and their team. I've already told you, like one of my favorite things going in football right now is Brent Key pre and post game press conferences, and yeah, it threw me off my game.
It took him, I don't know, almost 5 minutes before he noticed, and it's just because it went off.
Oh, this one was on. Yeah, I wonder why it was so much.
It just came on, and then it went off.
It's like a rave up in here now.
Where's
okay.
your glow sticks?
Clarkley's incredible. I'd run through a brick wall for that guy. Brent Key's just a football dude. Like he's the last couple of years at ACC Media Days has easily been my favorite conversation because he's not just a football dude. He's an O-lineman. It's just him all the time. So with all of that said, they're still not supposed to be in the game with Clemson. They're not supposed to be in the game with South Carolina. And it feels like both of them now are. Clemson goes into this game on the road in Atlanta as a 3.5-point favorite. There are some books offering them as 2.5-point favorites. South Carolina goes into this game against Vanderbilt as a 5.5-point favorite. But, and I asked this earlier, and I will ask again now, where are you on these two games? South Carolina has a 65% chance of winning, according to ESPN's matchup predictor, which, again, take it with the whole shaker of salt. Clemson has a 45% chance of winning the game. ESPN's matchup predictor has Georgia Tech with a 55% chance to win this football game. I find that very interesting. I find it very interesting, as we have broken down a number of times, because I have already said that for me, and maybe it's only for me, but I've had a couple of other hosts on different channel shows that I've done agree. This year feels like a referendum on Dabo Swinney and whether the Dabo philosophy is still feasible in 2025. And if we're being honest, Clemson, you're not off to a great start in proving that the answer to that question is yes. If I'd have told you preseason that you were going into the Georgia Tech game as a 3.5-point favorite on the road, and that ESPN has you with a 55% chance of losing that game before we started the season, you would have said, Rob Brown, You're just a hater, man. You're just a hater. That's all you are. And yet, here we are. That is the reality at this point. So, because of that, I would like to know from Clemson fans, and because of what Clark Lee is doing at Vanderbilt, what Diego Pavia and that offense did to a Virginia Tech team. Again, transitive property of football is very dangerous, right? We that's a war cry on this show. The transitive property of football is dangerous. That is something I say on the gambling shows all the time. That is something I say is just a regular fan all the time. But that is not to say that there is nothing to be learned from the transitive property of football. In week number 1, and granted, with all of the weight or lack thereof that the result of a week 1 game carries, you haven't found your groove. You haven't played a real game yet. You haven't even played a simulated game, right? Like at least the NFL guys, they get 3 simulated games. You get no even simulated games against the different opponent. Week 1 isn't going to be the best version of you. There are very few teams across the entire landscape of football. There are very few teams that I walked away from week 1 going, we know who this team is. The Miami Dolphins, I know who that team is now. I was wrong about that team. They are not going to be a shock and surprise team in the NFL. They're just bad. They're just bad. Oh, and by the way, Tyreek's now got more problems. Remember a whopping 48 hours ago when I said, it's more important now than ever for Tyreek Hill to keep his nose clean? Yeah, he's granted, it's old stuff, but it's new stuff. We'll talk about that later. The Dolphins are bad. I said after week 1 in the landscape of college football, I think Miami's pretty good. I think Notre Dame's fine, but I think Miami's pretty good. Here we are. They're now climbing in the rankings. I said after week 1, there are a few amount of teams that I watched, and I said, hey, man, like this team is already who this team is. Green Bay. The Green Bay Packers are a good football team. Like I'm at this point ready to hedge a bet. I took the Detroit Lions to win the NFC North, and I'm ready to go submit a counter ticket for the Green Bay Packers to win the North to try to cancel that bet out when it inevitably goes wrong. I think the point here is there's very few teams in week 1 that you say, that's who that team is. I don't think that South Carolina and the way they played Virginia Tech is who that team is. I will say Vanderbilt hung 43 on Charleston Southern in week 1. They turned around and they hung 44 on the same Virginia Tech team that a week before that, South Carolina took a little while to get going. Now, because we also know that there are other factors to be considered. We have to consider the fact that maybe Virginia Tech was as good as they could be in week 1. We have to consider the fact that that game mattered for Virginia Tech for the same emotional reasons that it mattered to South Carolina. It mattered to South Carolina on the football field to prove we're them now. Like we're them guys. Virginia Tech had the same motivation in proving we're not the dog crap that you all said we were before the season. Shane Beamer's out there trying to prove that the elevated expectations on the South Carolina Gamecock team are justified this year more than they have been in years gone by. On the flip side, Brent Pry was out there trying to justify not getting fired because he is, along with Dave Doran at NC State, the 2 coaches in the ACC that are considered by most of the people who cover that conference to be on the hot seat going into this year. And then, of course, there's the Beamer factor. Shane trying to beat the team where he got his start as a football coach under his daddy, Frank Beamer. On the flip side, Frank Beamer made Virginia Tech. And Tech going out there to beat their guy's little baby boy would have been a big deal for them. So you got all these other variables that come into play that make that game one of those games that you go, we can learn some things for this, but I wouldn't rush to judgment. The very next week, Vandy goes out there and beats Virginia Tech, no problem, right? Like they dog walk that team. And so while I do not subscribe to make picks based on, certainly don't bet on the transitive property of football, at the same time, it's got to be of interest that you struggled against that team. They turned around and whooped them the next week. And now you play each other the very next week after that. I think both of these teams are on the hot seat. No, scratch that. That's not the right word. Both of these teams are on upset alert. Neither coach is on the hot seat, but I think both of these teams are on upset alert coming into the weekend. And so my question to you, South Carolina fans, my question to you, Clemson fans, is honestly, just what is your take on the weekend? Like what happens if the worst happens? What happens if Clemson, if I recall, coming into the season, had the 4th shortest odds to win the national championship this year behind Ohio State, Texas, and Georgia? What happens if you lose this game and you start 0-2? What happens if you lose this game and you do not look any better going 0-2? What happens if you lose this game because your offense looks out of sorts? What happens if you lose this game because Adam Randall fumbles a time or two? What happens if you lose this game because you can't get a run game going against Tech? What happens if you lose this game because Cade Klubnik throws a couple of picks or ends up with a 50% completion percentage? Then what? And what happens if everything goes right? What happens if Clemson, as Ryan Horvat has predicted on BetMGM tonight? What happens if you walk into Atlanta and you dog walk Georgia Tech? You beat them the way you're supposed to beat them. What happens if you cover up that 3-point spread with ease? You can answer that question too. South Carolina, what happens if you lose to Vanderbilt, right? I've already said, I think you have to go 5-0. And it's not because I don't think that you are capable, if you go 4-1, of winning 4 of the remaining 6 ranked games on the back half of your schedule. I'm saying it because if you lose to Vanderbilt, no, you're not beating Ole Miss and Texas A&M and Florida and LSU and Alabama. Like, you're dropping 3 of those games. You're going 3-3 at the best down the stretch. And that'd be 4 losses. And that will bump you. 9-3, you still, again, I've already said a number of times. I've got 9-3 for, honestly, out of the Southeastern Conference. The reward for having the schedule thrown at you that you had thrown at you by the football gods this year, your reward is you are at the front of the list of teams that could potentially go in as a 9-3 football program. But if you lose to Vanderbilt, I think that's off the table. So what happens if you do? What happens if you do? Do the Gamecock fans go, oh, here we go again, and the support backs off, and all the things that have helped Shane Beamer elevate this team to where it is, they start to go away? Like what happens? That's my question to you. Here's a couple of texts that have come in so far. Spartanburg J texts the show, said, I have Georgia Tech's quarterback on one of my fantasy teams. I'm prepared to lose to Georgia Tech. Texture says, I figure if the Tigers lose, the seat turns to really warm at the minimum. There's a fair question. If you agree with my statement that this year is a referendum on the philosophy of one Dabo Swinney, if he starts a year...
what's a bad season in Clemson?
I would say starting 1-2 with losses to LSU and Georgia Tech's on that list.
Overall, what's a bad season in Clemson? We know what a really bad season is, but if they go 9-3, that a bad season?
I would say missing the playoffs this year is a bad season.
Okay.
I'd say missing the playoffs. I would say missing the playoffs in a year where you entered the year with an almost consensus Heisman Trophy finalist on your roster as quarterback. Entering a year where I believe you have the best defensive front seven in college football, and the defensive front seven has played exceptionally well. I believe that anything less than missing the playoffs is a failure for this team this year. Well, you haven't given yourself a lot of wiggle room.
I just don't think a seat would be warm. I don't. Even with a really bad season, I don't think a seat will be. Maybe with fans, but not with the administration at Clemson.
Well, I
think it would take a couple really bad seasons, and it would have to be really bad.
First off, I think you're accurate. I think you're right. But I would also have to ask the question, is there a line where the administration would say, no, we're not doing anything. We're not making a change. We fully believe in what we have going on here.
I know the administration is different, but take a look back at the record for Tommy Bowden.
Right, but this isn't that. We're in a new era. That was before a couple of natties. Right? Like this, that's like
it was, but it's still history, and it still shows kind of the way the tolerance I
See,
want to
don't-
say.
It's kind of like a drug in that once you get a little taste of that drug, the tolerance changes to that drug. If Rob Brown,
Wow, that's a drug reference.
if Rob Brown, well,
No.
medicine is drugs too.
Listen, it's definitely a good analogy.
If Rob Brown goes out as he did when he was a younger and more formidable man, 3, 4, 5 nights a week, and has a couple of bevies every now and then, my tolerance for booze is pretty high. I'm a 200+ pound Irishman. However, as Rob Brown has dropped the LBs, a large percentage of that is I don't drink as much anymore. I mean, I don't not, but it's just not as common anymore. And so now it's at a point where like the same 4 or 5 beers that used to just be a thing that I did, I have 4 or 5 beers now. I'm like, well, we're not going anywhere. Like, we're here. I'm not leaving. It's kind of like that. The tolerance level is different. What happens if they lose this game and they start 1-2? All right, here's a couple of texts real quick before we go to the break. Lefty Tiger says, we look like dog trash. I don't know what it is anymore. Could be Dabo's ways, could be players, could be coordinators. I don't know, but, and I'm quoting him here, I don't like it. I respect that. Texture said, I mean, with the transformative properties or whatever your college-educated self just said, Auburn basically beat SMU, so college football is in chaos. Texture said, let's not act like Vanderbilt wasn't down at half to Virginia Tech but couldn't close. South Carolina will. Lefty Tiger said, to me, it's a bad season without a playoff win. I think Dabo's 2 natties have bought him as much time as he wants, unfortunately. Spike in the live stream chat said, for this year, yeah, missing the playoffs would be a downer for Clemson. For the most part, Dabo has earned the right to retire on his terms. Garrett Riley, on the other hand, has very little wiggle room. Kane said, I'm seeing a lot of Clemson fans predicting an upset more than predicting Clemson winning. Fair enough. All right, we'll keep responding to this. I do want to talk some NFL and more as the show rolls on through hour number 3. Rob Brown, the Great One Lonzo, and you. The Rob Brown Show's on your radio. It is the Fan Upstate.
Now we're all.
All right, guys, quick live, and we're coming back. Stay right there for me, please, and thank you. Rubber on Show back on your radio, the Fan Upstate. Let's talk NFL here for just a couple of minutes here. I like charts. I like graphs. Big graph guy over here.
You didn't bring one, did you?
I sure did. Sure did. Love graphs. Big graph guy over here.
No.
Love graph. I did indeed found a graph. The graph.
Yeah, graphed is a totally different thing.
It was graphed. The graph is the week 1 quarterback time to throw versus depth of target chart.
Oh, we're not going to talk about Bryce Young again, are we?
Sure.
Oh, jeez.
Sure. This is a chart, and I'm not going to put it on the screen because I didn't have time to illustrate it the way I want to, but I will maybe tomorrow. Maybe I'll just put a social video up on it.
Couldn't find the right font. Yeah.
No, it's more along the lines I've wanted to be able to highlight it. It won't show up the way I need it to on the stream. So I'll just give it to you audibly because painting pictures with words is my job. 2025 week 1 quarterback time to throw and depth of target chart. And what you will find is that after one game, Bryce Young is squarely in the middle of this chart in terms of average time to throw and in terms of average depth of target. Both of those numbers are important. Obviously, the more time that you have to throw, hopefully the better you will throw. Moving from right most time in the pocket to throw to left least time in the pocket to throw. There are some names that stick out for different reasons. To the far right, the guy who had the most time to throw, a cat who had, on average, about 3.6 seconds per pass to throw the ball, is Jalen Hurts. Hey, what'd the Eagles do last year, by the way? What was the season result for them? Oh, that's right. Won the gosh darn Super Bowl.
As you've said many times today and yesterday, I think that's history, okay? That's history. We're not talking about history. It was another time.
We are not talking about history. We can obviously take metrics, numbers from 1 year ago, not 2011, and say, here's what the deal is.
History begins right after the now happens. So, I mean,
the teams that are furthest to the right, most time to throw. Here are some of the quarterbacks that are further to the right. Jalen Hurts, further to the right. Justin Fields is the second quarterback with most times to throw. Would you look at that? The difference between Justin Fields in Chicago when he was regularly on the far left of this chart versus the Justin Fields when he is on the far right of this chart, i.e. more time to throw, just under 3.4 seconds per drop back. All of a sudden, Justin Fields looked like not just a competent quarterback, looked like a pretty good quarterback this weekend. One of the interesting ones to the far right, Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams had the third most time in the pocket to throw before he was pressured. He is tied with Justin Fields at around 3.375 seconds of average time before required release. That is interesting because while Caleb Williams still showed that he has a lot of progression to get to, because again, put the emphasis on franchise in franchise quarterback, not on quarterback in franchise quarterback. Caleb Williams, while he did not look great, also probably looked the best that he has looked thus far. Next behind him, Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray got sacked in this game against New Orleans, if I recall, either 4 or 5 times. But he also had the 4th most time before a throw was forced of any quarterback in the NFL. Kyler Murray did not look bad this weekend. Kyler Murray's Cardinals won a game that was a very losable game. And a part of the reason it was a losable game is because the Saints defensive line got to Kyler Murray. But overall, he had more average time in the pocket to throw than any quarterback not named Fields, Williams, or Hurts. And he won the game. Just behind him, Brock Purdy, Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen. What do we know about all of these quarterbacks? Jalen Hurts won. Justin Fields and Caleb Williams did not won, but both of them look dramatically better than they looked the last couple of years when they actually had time to throw. Kyler Murray won. Brock Purdy won. Lamar Jackson did not won, but Lamar Jackson was playing Josh Allen, who is in that same group. He did win. Justin Herbert won. Baker Mayfield won. Next up on the group, and these are all dudes that are right around the middle of the chart. These guys just slightly above average time to throw. Cam Ward, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, Jared Goff. The Lions got dominated in this game. Jared Goff last year was hanging out way more over to the right on the chart. Much more time to throw. J.J. McCarthy won. However, J.J. McCarthy had to have the greatest fourth quarter of any rookie in NFL history. Drake May did not win. Jaden Daniels won. They ran the ball well and a lot. Cam Ward did not win. He was right on the middle. Jordan Love did win. In fact, he dominated the Lions. Here's the thing about Jordan Love. He is the first guy of this group that had an average target of 10 or more yards down the football field. The Packers recognize this cat's got a cannon. Let's take advantage of it. The average target depth for Jordan Love was 10 yards or deeper. There's only one guy who had a deeper average target depth than him. Who was it? Dak Prescott, who was below the average of time in the pocket before pressure, but had an average receiver depth of about 11 yards. That's what happens when you got CeeDee Lamb and you got George Pickens. What went wrong there? Well, CeeDee Lamb dropped 3 catchable footballs. Jake Ferguson dropped a catchable football that would have been a touchdown. Yes, he got his bell wrong, but it was a catchable football. And the Cowboys hung with the Eagles and played inside the spread all game long. Joe Burrow, dead center in both terms of depth and time in the pocket to throw. The point that I'm making here is when you look at the chart, even in the NFL, of time to throw, it is the most important factor. Depth of target is second. When you put these numbers together, you will find out the quarterbacks that were more successful, even if they didn't win, if they outperformed, like Dak Prescott, the further they are to the right in terms of time to throw, correlated with the higher they are on the graph in terms of average target they're throwing to, more success. It's really not that simple. Not that complicated. It is very simple. You build up an offensive line that gives your quarterback time to throw and a wide receiver core that can do more than just run 3-yard ends, you win football games. It's pretty simple. Back after this on the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate.
We're in.
Be right back, guys. Stay right there for me. Bob Ross of sports radio. I've never felt so flattered in my life.
I don't think you've ever been calm enough to be compared to Bob Ross, though.
That's probably
You ever think about what our boss would look like if he had Bob Ross hair?
No, I haven't, but I will now. I think he could pull it off.
I think he could too. I was thinking of calm people, although I've seen him angry, but for the most part, calm. Just turn it off.
Talking some National Football League here in the third hour of the Rob Brown Show. We will return to the college ranks coming up here in the next hour of the show, including, as it is Wednesday, at 9:20, the host of SiriusXM's College Football Overtime, Denton Day, will join us here on the program. We'll get his thoughts from week 2 on the performances of Clemson, of South Carolina, what their games look like this weekend, as well as take a trip around the rest of the AP Top 25. But since we are talking NFL, I wanted to talk a little bit more about quarterbacks. I pointed out in the last segment, just another feather in the cap of my argument, that too many people, some of you included, too many people put all of the emphasis on franchise or on quarterback and franchise quarterback and not enough on franchise. It is unbelievable the number of people who just refuse to acknowledge that if a team gets a top 5 draft pick at a quarterback, it's because they sucked enough to be able to do that. And for some reason, NFL fans have just got this idea in their head that new guy shows up, we're saved. Everything's amazing. We're on our path to salvation.
Isn't part of the problem with that also what sports media, and it is the job of sports media to do this, hyping up this guy before he comes in and making them sound like they are the savior of the team?
Yeah, I mean, again, to some degree, and I think it is because the concept for a lot of media, and I'm sorry that it is not for me and on this show, is to play in the extremes, is to dance around in the extremes. Everything is either on one extreme or the other. Everything is either just the greatest thing that's ever happened or the worst thing that's ever happened. And there's no in between. There's no context. There's no nuance to all of it. And I think that is a failure, frankly. But I also recognize that is because, unfortunately, that is what y'all react to. You react to the extremes. When somebody comes on and they give a nuanced, neutral take, most of you don't go, this is great. Most of you go, oh, no, I need him to pretend like it is better or it is worse than it is. But we'll put that aside for a minute. The point that I was making here is that if you go look at the results of some of the quarterbacks that have been some of the most discussed and debated quarterbacks around the NFL in the old chart that I brought up in the last segment that puts onto a graph time to throw and average depth of the targeted receiver, what you will find is that the further to the right, primarily, time to throw, and then the higher up you look, although this is less important because a quarterback can be wildly successful in a dink and dunk offense if it's built that way.
I was going to say, are you factoring in, there are some quarterbacks, Tom Brady classically never held the ball for very long at all. And there are some quarterbacks, boom, they get it, it's out.
100%. And I think like Jalen Hurts, whose average depth to target was 2 yards. The average depth to target for Jalen Hurts in that game was 2 yards. Now, in fairness, it must also be brought up that I think something was wrong with A.J. Brown in that game. He's kind of the deep threat. Wasn't really ever a factor in that game. This does cover up bad decision-making, bad target selection by the quarterback, right? If a guy's just missing guys that are running open and throwing it underneath, checking down a bunch, then that will hurt that number. So that's why that number is less important. The number that matters to me the most is the number moving to the right. That is average time to throw. Now, you can even be successful. Do you know who had the lowest? And this is why I think it will be a long season, despite a week 1 win that looked very impressive. Do you know who had the lowest time in the pocket before pressure in the NFL in week 1? Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers had about 1.1 seconds average time to throw. Now, I will also include in this the fact that if you throw a lot of dink and dunk, you throw a lot of underneath, obviously when you release the ball, that is when your time to throw timer ends, right? And so Aaron Rodgers, who was throwing a lot of underneath footballs, that number is probably manufactured low. There are some other quarterbacks on this chart that have the same thing. Matt Stafford and the Rams. They want a tight game. We know what the Rams offense is with Puka Nacua. It's a lot of underneath with throwing the ball to running backs. It's a lot of underneath. So his numbers artificially down. Two guys that are at the bottom end of this chart whose numbers weren't artificially down. They just play behind questionable offensive lines. Sam Darnold and Spencer Rattler are the next two quarterbacks on this chart. Both of those guys had about 2 seconds to throw the football at maximum. This is why I said on Sunday, despite the L, I'm actually really happy with Spencer Rattler and his performance on Sunday. As both a Saints fan and a knower of ball, I'm actually really happy with his performance because I called that out in the game. The guy is running for his gosh darn life. Remember, the timer does not end with a sack or a throw. It does end with a throw. The timer on a pressure ends when that quarterback is officially under pressure. Spencer Rattler was under pressure constantly in this game, and yet put up pretty good numbers, including a pair of dropped should have been touchdowns. That's why I said, I'm happy with that. The next guy lowest on this list, Michael Penix Jr. Why do you think his rushing numbers were so high? Because he had to. Next up on this list, Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, Geno Smith, all in a group together. Again, TL looked pretty good. If you're Carolina, if there's a takeaway from that game, and I'm very intrigued to hear what Rashad Beard's take is going to be later on this week. We are going to move him to Thursday. By the way, quick house cleaning. I'm out on Friday this week. So we're gonna try to move Rashad. He's trying to see if he can schedule to be with us on Thursday. I will let you know if we can get that done. So I'm interested to hear his take. One of the few positive takeaways for me about Carolina was that the average time to throw in this game was for Trevor Lawrence was held well below the league average overall. And again, league average is something that's going to be kind of a moving target as offensive lines get better and more cohesive, especially for teams like Jacksonville, like Atlanta that have kind of rebuilt, or some teams that have completely rebuilt their offensive line. But the point here is if you look at these numbers, the further to the left you go, unless they are towards the top of the chart as well, the further to the left you go, the less impressive the performances were as passing quarterbacks, right? Like Trevor Lawrence had a good day. Was it an all-time passing day for Trevor Lawrence? No, not really. We knew that they were going to be a running team, and they look like a running team. Tua Tagovailoa had the most embarrassing day maybe of his entire football playing career on Sunday. He looked atrocious. But it is also because everything that happens on a football field, butterfly affects everything else that happens on the football field. When the guy is getting less than 2.8 seconds to throw, it's not going to be as good. Now, 2.8 is still a number you should perform at. That is why Joey B is expected to perform at a league average of 2.8 seconds per pass. Russell Wilson, same situation. Bo Nix, captain checkdown, 2.8. All those guys are in a group together. All of it kind of wraps up with each other. What happened to the Chiefs? You know what Patrick Mahomes' average time to throw was? Less than Daniel Jones. Less than Tua Tagovailoa, less than Trevor Lawrence. Patrick Mahomes had less time to throw than Geno Smith did this weekend. When we talked about the fact that of all of those conversations that got had about the Chiefs over the weekend, is the dynasty dead? There were some concerns that I brought up that I said no, but if it is, here's why. One of them was age and injury. One of them was offensive line. Because you did upgrade in some spots. But you still got Juwan Taylor playing for you.
Well, there's also the fact that they forgot that there's a running game, and they just stopped using the running game. And so the defense knew what they were doing almost every single time.
And when you combine the running game going away with your quarterback having less than 2.7 seconds to throw the ball, Bad things are going to happen, man.
That's what I mean. More people are rushing the quarterback because they know they're not running the ball and they're not going to get hit on a delay or anything like that. So
bad things are going to happen. So that's just kind of is what it is. The point here
you're
is
saying it's over. It's over. I should pack away my Chiefs gear. And
I'm saying you better figure out how to run the football. And I'm saying you better get to the point where your offensive line can block well without false starting every snap.
Well, there's that.
Yeah.
That would help.
That is, to me, that's part of the reason.
Juwan Taylor.
You had a couple of years
Dude,
there.
at least act upset when you make a mistake.
Well, he's not. He's used to it. You look at a situation where for a couple of years there, your left tackle got away with a lot of offensive false starts. That was part of the complaint of the Chiefs get calls, was Juwan Taylor jumped every snap. And then it started to get called.
Wow, that was another one. I think he's a right tackle, by the way. But that's 3. I'm just 3-1. I'm upset about that.
It is a matter of.
I'm trying to derail to get him off of it, but it's just not working.
It is one more argument, one more reason, as I have said in the past, one more reason that I say put the emphasis on the quarterback, or on the franchise, not just the quarterback. Because when you stick a guy behind an offensive line that's giving him 2.4 seconds to throw, when Jalen Hurts is getting 3.8, when Caleb Williams is getting 3.7, 3.5, when you were talking an entire second extra one Mississippi in the pocket, that's a lifetime in quarterback terms. If they're not getting that, I don't know how you expect performance. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. Final hour of the show. We go back to college football. Denton Day joins us at 9:20. Carolina fans, Gamecock fans, Clemson Tiger fans, looking for you. What is your, right now, way too early, but not totally too early, thoughts on your games this weekend? I think you're both on upset alert. Is that fair? Here's what's fair. We don't charge you for this sports flash, even though we should.
Wait, I could get paid for this?
$9.99 a month. You got to do it barefoot.
No, I'm already barefoot. Eagles defensive lineman Jalen Carter will not be suspended by the NFL for spitting on Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott. Carter was ejected from the game before playing a single play, which the NFL says will count as the 1-game suspension he would have been served. So time served. Carter also forfeited his week 1 game check worth more than $57,000. Man, that must be, I wish I had that. The Braves lost to Chicago last night, 6-1. Spencer Strider took his 13th loss of the season, despite giving up just 6 hits and 2 runs in 6 innings, while striking out 8. The Braves had just 4 hits on the night, including going 1 for 6 with runners in scoring position and only 1 hit for extra bases. Philly slugger Kyle Schwarber became the first player in the National League to reach 50 home runs last night. The Phillies have won the first 2 of 4 games set to build their lead in division to 9 games. First time Schwarber has hit 50 home runs in his career. The light is bugging him because it keeps flashing on and off, so I just unplugged it. I'm not telling him, though. You guys should not tell him either. You'll have a better hour if that thing isn't coming on and off because it's bugging him.
University of Maryland Global Campus offers more than 55 flexible online certificates that provide short-term credentials and real-world skills you can use immediately. With a range of affordable undergraduate and graduate certificates in high-demand fields like business, AI, cybersecurity, data analytics, and healthcare, you can earn credentials quickly to help advance your career. Learn more at umgc.edu. That's umgc.edu.
Not only did I kill it, but the boss just pulled in, which means he was listening to it. So, you know. Which may or may not have to do with me doing my best on the third one. I don't know. And why, if I do mess up on the third one, I get so upset because I know he's pulling in and he could have it on. So I'm doing a psychological experiment today. I have an employee. We have an employee who keeps backing in next to my car. And so I can't get into the passenger side to put my stuff in it. So I moved over one spot. The problem is people who normally park next to me decide to move over one spot too. So now there are going to be 3 spots open unless Chicken Salad Chick people come over and decide to park there. We'll see if he parks next to my car still. Then I'll have to ask him to not do that. That is not funny, Steven. Although some people may think I'm creepy, I don't think I'm creepy. If you are creepy, do you know you're creepy? I don't know. I guess some people are like, yeah, I'm creepy. I'm just going to go with it. But I think a lot of creepy people don't know they're creepy. And is it our duty as a human being to go up and go, hey, man, you're creepy. Stop it. And would that work? Would they just suddenly go, what, I am? And then it just changed their entire outlook on life. It could be. It wouldn't have worked with Mr. Rogers because he is just, he was. If I told Rob he was creepy, he'd be thinking about it all the time, trying to figure out how to not be creepy because he's constantly trying to better himself.
I feel like creepy people are creepy because they do not have social cognizance. Like they don't get social cues.
What if you're just creepy looking?
I think you can be creepy looking and not be creepy unless you lean into it.
It might be, James. You're right. It might, or it may cause the creepy to level up to the next level of creepy. And then when he knows you think, or she knows you think they're creepy, maybe they start spending more time around you because they know you think they're creepy. QC in the first break.
The Rob Brown Show back on your radio. It is the Fan Upstate. Rob Brown, the Great One, Lonzo, and you. 844-326-3663 is the phone number to call in and be a part of the show. It is also the Spartanburgers text line, the Hub City Spartanburgers text line, 844-326-3663. Shoot us a text. Let us know what you are thinking about. We are talking quite a bit today of South Carolina and Clemson because the focus has been on Clemson, and I do think it is very fair for the focus to be on Clemson. The expectations are higher for what is effectively similar results from the two teams. The difference obviously being that South Carolina caught VTech out of the gate and Clemson got LSU, and it looks like LSU might be for real this year. Neither one of these teams, in my opinion, has performed at the level of expectations thus far. Now, South Carolina has accomplished what needs to be done in starting off this season at 2-0 with a, in my opinion, requirement to be 5-0 out of the gate if they do indeed want to be a college football playoff team. Clemson, I did not have the expectation of beat LSU. I did say it would have been nice. I did say it would have been a huge benefit. And I did say that looking at the schedule as it's set up for Clemson, you better hope that I'm right that the ACC is up this year because you don't really have any other resume builders outside of South Carolina. And If South Carolina does not live up to expectations, then you may not even have that as a resume builder this year. If South Carolina takes a handful of drummings down the line when they have the most difficult back 7 weeks of the football schedule in college football, that could end up hurting you a little bit too in a rivalry game. So didn't expect a win in that game. It certainly would have gone a long way in helping. I don't think either team has, more importantly, lived up to their own potential. You know, there was a point in time a very long time ago when I was a young man, 30 plus years ago. Ouch. There was a point in time when I came home in 6th grade from Miss Grady's algebra class. I was taking Algebra 1. Y'all, I sucked at algebra.
By the way, you're not that old. That was not 30 years ago.
Yeah, you're right. It was like 28 years ago. Close enough.
All
right, point is, I sucked at algebra. When they started putting letters into math, it just all fell apart for me. There's a reason that I figured out how to work a microphone, okay? So, I very much remember in Miss Grady's math class, algebra class, coming home from school very early. Rob Brown was always a dude, like, I did well in school. And it was easy for me. Like, it was a problem because school came easy for me until I started to get into algebra. For whatever reason, it kicked me squarely in the pants. So early 6th grade, came home, one of the first math tests of the year, and I bombed it. It didn't click for me. Whatever happened, the numbers didn't click for me. And I brought it home and I showed the old man because the old man was very invested in your grades are good or you do nothing else. If your grades stink, no football. If your grades stink, no basketball. If your grades stink, no baseball. If your grades stink, no soccer. If your grades stink, no nothing.
Nothing wrong with that.
Not at all. Not at all. But that was the philosophy. If your grades stink, you don't get to do the stuff you want to do if you don't do well at the stuff you have to do. So I came home and I showed him and I'm like, dude, I suck at math. And he's like, let me ask you a question. Did you honestly put in the effort? Did you honestly put in the effort to be able to say, I did the best I could do on this? I said, yeah, Dad. And he goes, that's really funny because I live with you and I see everything that you do. And I haven't seen an algebra book yet. And I said, well, yeah, but I don't have to do that. And he said, kind of looks like you do, right? Because at that point, I really never had to study at all. Stuff just clicked for me. It didn't. Algebra didn't. Miss Grady's class was awful for me. And he's like, you didn't study. You didn't put in extra time. You didn't sit down and go, what's confusing me? Why is it confusing me? And let's get to the root of it. You didn't ask for help. You didn't ask for my help or your mom's help. You didn't ask for us to get you a tutor. You didn't take advantage of her office hours where she would do one-on-one tutoring. You didn't do any of that. You just thought you were going to get it. You didn't put in the work and you got your butt kicked. He said, I'm not mad about it. I just need you to recognize that you did not live up to your expectations. You did not live up to your potential. This is on you. Because I was ready to go with Miss Grady stinks as a teacher. And he goes, maybe she does, but you don't know that yet because you haven't really put in the effort. And that was a big learning lesson for me, right? That was a moment where I had to learn I need to evaluate my performance before I start putting it on everybody else. Did I live up to my potential? Because, hey, kids out there, Uncle Rob might be the only one that tells you the truth. All right? I've told you the truth of you can't do anything you want to do. It's an unfortunate reality about being alive. But there's another truth that you need to recognize out there. Sometimes you can do the absolute best you can. You can genuinely look yourself in the mirror at night and go, I did the absolute best I could do, and still fail miserably. It's going to happen to you. You are going to bust your behind to do the absolute best that you can do. And it's not going to be good enough. And the only level of satisfaction that you will be able to take, and I encourage you to learn how to get here. The only level of satisfaction you will take away from the situation is being able to look yourself in the mirror at night and say, I absolutely did everything I could do. I left nothing on the table. There is nothing more I could have done. And that's a hard thing to be able to say. You will always question yourself when you fail. But the ability to say, and genuinely mean, but look yourself in the mirror and say, I did everything that I could do. I could not have done anything more, and I failed, and that's okay. It's a life lesson. I didn't do that. And that's kind of where I am with South Carolina after 2 weeks. I'm looking at this team in the face, and I'm going, do you genuinely think you're firing on all cylinders right now? Because I don't. And I don't because I look at the Clemson-Troy game. And you'll notice I said that about South Carolina, not necessarily Clemson. I am at the point now where I'm wondering, did we overhype Clemson a little bit? Because the Clemson problems seem to be, for me, driven by two things. Number one, the most boring, predictable, uninspiring, unimaginative play calling I've seen in a very long time. It's just the same old Clemson Tiger offense. And number two, it looks like maybe they're just not as good as we thought they were. And hey, maybe Clemson is indeed getting to the point where you go, that's just their ceiling. That's just the best that they are capable of right now. And based on some of the texts we've got so far this morning from a number of Clemson Tiger fans who have said, like Lefty Tiger said, we look like dog trash, end quote. Like Spartanburg Jay said, I'm prepared to lose to Georgia Tech. I'm wondering if maybe we didn't overhype this squad coming into this season. Was doing the interview on BetMGM tonight last night with Ryan Horvat. And Horvat was like, Kate Klubnik's going to throw for 4 touchdowns and Georgia Tech's going to get blown out this weekend. And I said, based on what, bud? Based on what? What film are you looking at here? Because again, Rob Brown's shift in football philosophy has moved over to what's on tape? What can I look at? What can I go rewatch and go, there it is. There's the spark. There's the flash. It's just a flash, but we know they can do it. Where is that? I think South Carolina was able to last with South Carolina State for one reason and one reason alone. I think in the third quarter, South Carolina looked at the scoreboard and went, yeah, we're up 2 scores, but like, it's not because we're special, right? It's not because we're better than them. We're up 2 scores because our punt returner is an ace, is the SEC special teams player of the week. And I think they clicked. I don't think Clemson suddenly worked it on Troy because they clicked and figured it out. I think they put the work on Troy because Troy ran out of gas. I think they put the work on Troy because Troy got to a point where their lack of top-notch athletic prowess showed, right? They just don't have the resources. They don't have the money. They don't have the athletes to be able to go deep into a 4-quarter hotly contested contest with an ACC team. It's just not there. I think you outlasted Troy more than you beat Troy, in my respectful opinion. So my question mark for you now is, A, do you think your team, whether you are a Clemson fan or a South Carolina fan, do you think that your team has genuinely lived up to its expectations so far? Do you feel like your team has genuinely gotten anywhere close to what the best they can be is? Because the answer for me is definitely no for South Carolina. And a less confident, though still possible, but less confident no for Clemson. I still think this team is better than it showed in the first 2 weeks. At the end of the day, if nothing else, that talent we talked about should carry you further than you've gone so far. But I will say this. For both of these teams, if that doesn't change this weekend, you will both lose. I think both of these teams are on upset alert. This is, remember, because while Vandy did have Virginia Tech last week, this is genuinely the first opportunity in front of Vanderbilt for the Commodores to point out, we are for real. This is the first time for the Vanderbilt Commodores to say, hey, we're here. We've arrived. Like, no, we're not Georgia. We're not Alabama. But we are damn sure on an upward trajectory. And if they go and become the first team to hang an L on Lenora Sellers in 2025, people are going to turn their eyeballs. Because as we said earlier this week on the show, Lenora Sellers is the media darling. He is America's player right now. South Carolina. This is why I said coming into the season, forget a playoff berth, forget a quarterfinal or a semifinal or a final, forget an SEC championship game or anything else. You have something in your possession already that is probably more valuable than anything other than hoisting that bank pen holder looking trophy at the end of the year. What you have in your back pocket is the attention of the United States of America. What you have in your back pocket is the media looking at your quarterback and going, that dude's an alien. What you have is America's attention on social media right now, replaying a clip posted by the South Carolina social media team on TikTok of Lenoris's rushing touchdown against Virginia Tech when he went through a dude like a xenomorph to score on the other side. The video got played like a gazillion times. Why? Because people are fascinated by Lenora Sellers. But in order for that to matter in the long term, you have to take advantage of it. You have to succeed. You have to win with that. If the team that played the first half against South Carolina State shows up, you will lose to Vanderbilt. And while it may not be the joke that Alabama losing to Vanderbilt last year was, while it may not be the joke that everybody loves to hang on and tell all year like we did with the Alabama jokes last year, it 1,000% for the first time in a long time will be a spot where folks around the United States are going to go, who lost to Vanderbilt? Lenora Sellers lost to Vanderbilt. South Carolina lost to Vanderbilt. And I'm telling you, Vanderbilt knows that. And while I did at the beginning, but while I do have an immense amount of belief, faith, whatever you want to call it, that Shane Beamer will have the boys up and ready to go, I do not think right now that there is a better motivator at head coach than Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. Clark Lee is one of like 3 coaches. It's basically him and...
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
That have dominated sound bites on the board over here. That's it. Those boys will be up. This is Vandy's first chance to say, last year was not an anomaly. It was not a fluke. That's who the hell we are. You better not let them do it. Because if you do, then everything you've gained this season with Lenoris becoming the spotlight and national attention, your win total being moved to 9.5, like all these things go out the window. Speaking of out the window, this segment is Denton Day of SiriusXM's College Football Overtime next on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate.
You see.
All right, guys, one live, and we're back with Denton Day. Stay right there for me, please, and thank you. up, Denton Day, you handsome son of a gun?
Whoa, look at you with the trimmed up face. You look good.
Yeah, man. Oh, look, I hacked the hair off and everything. I'm having a midlife crisis, Denton Day. I recognize that on the show today.
Does that mean you're getting more tattoos?
Yes, I am, actually. I have an appointment on the books next week to schedule the next one, yes.
Hell yeah.
The Rob Brown Show back on your radio. It is the Fan Upstate. One of my favorite segments of the week every week is Wednesday at 9:20 a.m. when we take a trip up to what I assume would be considered the great Northeast of the United States of America. It's more Northeast than we are, and therefore,
are you sure? Well,
am
north,
I sure that Washington?
It's at least north.
It certainly is more. We go northern. Ladies and gentlemen,
all right.
We take it up to the DMV area where we find the host of College Football Overtime on SiriusXM. He is also a host and producer on the BetMGM network. He is also an all-around dude. The iconic Denton Day joining us here on the program. Young man, week 2 in the books. How we feeling, dog?
I feel great. I think DC is more mid-Atlantic.
Mid-Atlantic.
Yeah, mid-Atlantic. But I feel really, really good, man. How about you guys?
Life's good. I am discussing this, Sam, and we are getting a bit of an echo, Denton. So if you don't mind checking your mic source, because I think you might be coming through the wrong one.
I was trying to.
Yeah,
I was trying to point without, doing the.
Hey, listen, it's live radio.
Yeah,
Anything can happen. All right, anything can happen. Denton Day, is it fair for me to say the Clemson Tigers are absolutely on upset watch against Georgia Tech this weekend?
I'm on Georgia Tech covering the 3.5, so I think it's totally fair that you're good to say that. I just don't know what offensively they're going to be. That first half against Troy stunk. Yeah, obviously there was weather involved in it. There was a delay, but it still wasn't exceptional when the delay was over. I thought they would absolutely hang 40 on them, and they did not do that. So I don't think it's a crazy thought at all to say that they were on upset alert.
Yeah, I think so. And I will say, here's another take that I don't think is all that hot, though Ryan Horvat has disagreed with me through 2 weeks. And I'm not hating on the kid or banging the drum or anything, but I think it's also fair to say Cade Klubnik has maybe been college football's biggest disappointment so far in 2025. If he doesn't, whatever it is that's going wrong, get that fixed by this weekend, I do think that they are in trouble.
I wouldn't say he's the biggest disappointment. I think Alabama losing to Florida State was more disappointing, and I think Florida was more disappointing, but I think he's in the conversation, and he needs to get right. A lot of the reason why those, like myself, had Clemson winning the national championship was because they had a quarterback that you thought, hey, they're going to take another step forward. Now, there were other reasons. I thought defensively they were pretty well-rounded. I thought offensively with some of the skill position guys, they were pretty well-rounded. I don't know, though, if Cade Klubnik is not going to ball out, if they're going to be a legitimate national championship threat, so he needs to play better.
Denton Day from College Football Overtime on SiriusXM. Do me a favor if you don't mind, buddy. Check your. I'm going to ask you more time. Check your mic settings. We might have to have you reconnect because we got you very quietly and the folks on the stream can't hear you. So do me a favor, just reconnect real quick if you don't mind. If we can see if you get your mic straightened out. Denton Day from College Football Overtime on SiriusXM joins us every week here on the Rob Brown Show.
She's giving her all she's got, Captain.
Yeah, we didn't have any more boost that we could boost there. So we'll see if we can get that straightened out because I am kind of curious where he lands on that game. And obviously we're going to ask here momentarily about South Carolina and Vanderbilt, as well as take a trip around the rest of the college football universe. But again, I am not committing to the thought that Cade Klubnik is the biggest disappointment in college football in 2025. And I do want it to be very clear. The reason that is true, or might be true, is exclusively because of the fact that the expectations were as high as the expectations were. Cade Klubnik is not playing bad football. It's just that the expectations were really, really good football. And I would make the argument that he's just not playing really, really good football. Like he's playing fine football, but fine's not enough for that team. And going into Atlanta to take on Georgia Tech, because everything I said, by the way, about Vanderbilt, everything I said about Vandy, and this is the point in time where Vandy can prove that they are legitimate. This is the point in time where Vandy can prove that they are real. This is the point in time where Vandy can prove that last year was not the anomaly. Like that manifest in this game against South Carolina this weekend. That comes to fruition in this game against South Carolina. So if they are going to end up getting any sort of recognition, the Vanderbilt Commodores, beating South Carolina would go a long, long way in proving that to be correct and accurate. I think Denton has disappeared into the internet. I think he may have been absorbed by Wikipedia or something. We'll see if we can get him connected. We may have to take a short break and push back here in just mere moments from now. Mike isn't connecting. Yeah, let's go ahead and call Denton Day, if you don't mind, Lonzo, and we'll just get him on the phone. There's the number. I'll tell you what. Would it be easier for us to go to break?
Let's take a break.
Here's what we're going to do.
It's about break time.
Yeah,
anyway,
it's about break time. We're going to go to break. We'll come back. We'll hang out with Denton Day until the end of the show-ish. We'll do that when we come back. The Rob Brown Show is on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. All right, guys, we're going to step away and get Denton lined up. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. right, because live radio is live radio and sometimes things get a little bit wonky, let's try this again. And let's this time go to the phone lines because, we trust the phones. At least we'll find out if we trust the phones. Ladies and gentlemen, the host of College Football Overtime on Sirius XM and a host and producer on the BetMGM Network and just a friend of mine on and off the air, ladies and gentlemen, Denton Day here on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. All right, big dog, let's pick up where we left off just a moment ago. And instead of being specific, Denton Day, just give me your overall thoughts. ESPN's matchup predictor, for whatever that's worth, says Georgia Tech has a 55% chance of winning this game, even though Clemson is a moneyline favorite still. Where are you on this game overall?
Well, first of all, appreciate it. Radio guy couldn't get his microphone to work. Love that for me. I think this matchup, though, is going to test the physicality of Clemson. I really liked what they brought at the beginning of the season, but I know that Georgia Tech is they're going to punch them in the mouth a little bit. So I really like where Georgia Tech stands with this particular matchup. I think it's going to be an interesting one and a tough one for Clemson. I'm taking Georgia Tech, Rob, to cover the 3.5. I still ultimately think that Clemson wins, but I do think that the Yellow Jackets are going to keep it close.
I think that's fair. Now, let's ask this one a little bit more of a broad speculative question, Denton Day. I think the one thing I can say is no matter how you feel about it, this team absolutely it's just not lived up to the expectations everybody had going into the season. Are you with Ryan Horvat in that they're going to figure it out, they'll be fine, it's going to take some time? Or are you with me in, man, after you got pummeled by LSU in your own crib, that was worse than a one-score final indicated. If you couldn't get up and get ready to go the next week against Troy and found yourself down 16-3 at the half, I just don't know that you're good, or at least as good as we thought you were going into the season. On which side of that sliding scale of truth do you reside?
Because it's only been 2 weeks, I think I'm a little bit closer to Horvat than I am to you. Now, this week is going to heavily adjust where I feel. If you lose to Georgia Tech, you're not as good as we thought you were. Like, we think that Georgia Tech is going to be a good team in the ACC. They've proven to be a good team in the ACC the last couple of years, but they are not at the point where they should be beating Clemson, particularly this year's Clemson team. So if they lose to Georgia Tech, it's a completely different ballgame. But right now, just because we kind of saw this a little bit last year where they struggled in the first couple of weeks to really get momentum and get the offense going, I'm still in a position to where I do think they will eventually turn the corner and they'll get their feet under them.
Just because I am curious, where are you with this Tech team? This was my surprise team coming into the year. Not a surprise to me, but I think going to surprise a lot of other people. Denton Day, I actually have a ticket out on Georgia Tech to make the playoffs. I know it's a long shot, but I picked it up at like 22-1, and I really like that number. It is, as far as the ACC goes, one of the more favorable schedules. I'm a big Brent Key guy. He's just a football dude. He doesn't give a damn about anything other than football. Where are you on this team currently and moving forward?
Well, I'm jealous that you got them 22-1. I only got them 7-1 to make the playoff. But I am with you in the fact that I do think they're a sneaky team to potentially make the playoff because of that easier schedule in the ACC. And because, look, if you beat Clemson, or even if you play Clemson close and inevitably see them again in the ACC championship. Now, I didn't think that FSU or Miami was going to be as good as they've looked the first 2 weeks of the season. But bringing a lot of the production offensively that you had in 2024 is always going to be a luxury, and especially when you play the kind of football that you do, where it's smash mouth, it's physicality, and you bring guys that want to be physical back. So I still feel really good about Georgia Tech. This is just going to be the first of potentially many, but the first real litmus test to be like, all right, are you just a middle of the pack ACC school, or are you a school that is transitioning to the upper tier of the conference?
We are talking to Denton Day, the host of College Football Overtime on Sirius XM. Let's flip over for just a minute to South Carolina Vanderbilt, because it kind of feels Denton Day like there's a similar setup here. Although South Carolina, I do not think we would hit with the disappointing label yet. I think it is a much more interesting question of, is South Carolina not playing up to the roof of expectations, or did we set the roof of expectations too high? It took them a little while to get going against SC State. While I am obviously a proponent of warning people about the transitive property of football, took a long while to get going against the same Virginia Tech team that Vandy then dominated the very next week. And then on the flip side, Vanderbilt, like Clark Lee, I think he might be my favorite coach in college football, not named Kurt Signetti right now. That dude gets me wanting to run through a wall. Vanderbilt's got this vibe of we're going to prove we are no longer the whipping boys that we were for 1,000 years. This game feels more dangerous to South Carolina than maybe it did at the beginning of the season as well.
Definitely, but I always kind of felt like this was going to be a dangerous game just because Diego Pavia is a dangerous player. He is a soul crusher in many instances, and you're right. You talk about Clark Lee. You want to talk about football guy. Clark Lee's football guy. Played fullback. He likes contact. They bring a new swagger that we have not seen in years. I do think to the first portion of your question, I do think the roof was set a little too high for South Carolina, but I'm still relatively confident. I think the first 2 weeks you kind of utilized to get some of the mistakes out. You just got to come correct this weekend against Vanderbilt. You have to hit the ground running offensively. You need to be executing at a high level offensively because you're now going up against a team that at the very least is now in your weight class, right? Like Virginia Tech is not in the weight class of any SEC team. They're just not. And then what they played last week is obviously not in the weight class of an SEC program. So now you're playing a team that had success last year, that brings back a quarterback. It's a fun quarterback. Everybody loves the quarterback. They're kind of like this like weird SEC America's team just because of the quarterback. I do think, though, that South Carolina is going to win this game. I saw some people saying that this is a Vanderbilt trap. I don't really believe that. I think last year was Vanderbilt's year to start trapping teams. I don't believe that anyone is looking at Vanderbilt as a team they're just going to dominate the way they have in years past. So I think South Carolina will be ready for it. I really do.
More than fair. What is the impact of this game for South Carolina? What is the statement that they can make, good or bad? I mean, they lose this game, it'll make a statement. They win this game close, it'll be a statement. They dominate Vandy, it'll be a statement. Which statement do you think South Carolina comes out of this weekend making to the folks who will vote in November to place them in that first playoff ranking?
So what's a dominant victory? Because that's like, what is the point differential? Is a 10-point win dominant, or does it have to be at least 2 touchdowns?
I don't lean on necessarily a score Denton Day, because then you end up in a situation like LSU Clemson, where if you watch that game, to me, there was never a point where Clemson felt like they were a threat to take the lead back, but the scoreboard only showed a 7-point win. LSU dominated that football game. I'm just going to say there's no point in the game where South Carolina fans like they need to pour themselves an extra 12 ounces of whiskey. How's that?
So I think that's going to be more of what happens this weekend. And I think that statement is that we are now moving up the conference, because Vanderbilt is I'm going to make a wrestling term, Rob, and you'll get this.
Hell yeah!
Most of your audience does too. Vanderbilt is right now a mid-carder, and you as South Carolina are trying to transition from being a mid-carder to a heavyweight. And you're trying to get to the main event. You're trying to be at the top of the card. If you beat and dominate Vanderbilt, which I think this is going to be a close to a double-digit win for South Carolina, to where the fourth quarter you might get a couple of offensive explosive plays from Vanderbilt, but I do not think that there's going to be any real threat of South Carolina losing this game in a final frame of action. I think this is going to be a win that you walk away from and say, all right, we are not mid-carders anymore. We are not bottom tier. We are correct in thinking that this team had legitimate possibilities of being really good, and they are validating that in front of us as they start to play tougher opponents.
Don't have any disagreement with that. Denton Day of college football overtime on Sirius XM. Got a few more minutes here. Let's talk about some of the other teams that have been interesting. Again, Denton Day, I believe you get the same daily email that I get that tells us how much time we must legally allocate to talking about Arch Manning. I think it is a requirement passed down by the administration. So let's knock that out here. Better game, but also against San Jose State. Multiple touchdown passes, but also had a lot of misses, never really looked comfortable. Is Arch Manning an average quarterback?
I think he's hurt. I think he's hurt. Sark says that, hey, what do you look like when you go to the bathroom? And I'm like, all right, cool. That doesn't ignore the fact that your quarterback doesn't look very comfortable, and we can all make that assessment, right? It's either he doesn't look comfortable, or you need to severely adjust his throwing motion, because his throwing motion is not one that allows him to be successful. So I think he's better than average, but I don't believe, and I was never on this Arch for Heisman hype. You know this, Rob. The preseason Heisman favorite never wins the damn thing. So anybody that drank that Kool-Aid, that is your own fault as an adult. I was not on that. I think he's going to be I think he's a good quarterback still, but I was just never with the fact that he was going to be the savior of Texas. I never was, and I think we're kind of seeing that in real time. Let's remember, this guy really didn't play a lot before he got to this season. So we're seeing the growing pains. They just got to adjust that throwing motion, because he's going to throw his shoulder out.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. And by the way, I am really, really glad that you arrived at the same thing I did, which is no, Sark, you don't need to see me poop for us to be able to tell that Arch Manning's off right now. It's pretty obvious.
Just got to point out, though, we've seen several videos of the face that Arch Manning makes.
It's definitely he's pooping face.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But unless Arch Manning is actually crapping his pants in the game and it's not a metaphor for choking Denton Day, then I don't know what Sark is trying to prove here.
Yeah, I thought that was coaches think they're funnier than they are. And they always try and make media feel a little smaller when they ask them questions that are slightly uncomfortable, because they walk around college campus. They are the man. They have so much control. They don't like it when they don't have control. You don't have control with the media. So you try and talk down to the media a little bit. That was a swing and miss. We've seen good instances, like Nick Saban was a pro at this for a long time, making you feel small. This was just a swing and a miss by Sark. Like, I don't understand why he immediately went to hey, what do you look like when you're pooping? When he asked about, hey, is your quarterback hurt?
All right, since we're talking about Sark, let me throw something at you that I've brought up on a couple of shows over the past week and a half or so, Denton Day. I'm kind of tired of everybody pretending like Steve Sarkisian is like the next Nick Saban. Like, I'm over it. He's 6-9 against ranked teams in his entire career as a head coach. And I understand that not all of those contests were at Texas, but he's also yet to get it done there, despite all of the resources allocated to the football program. Respond how you wish. I'm just tired of us all pretending like Steve Sarkisian is the second coming.
I think any coach right now that you're pretending is the second coming would be a bad idea, right? Like, even Kirby Smart, we thought that was, but the past couple of years for Georgia have been, well, not exactly that. I love Sark as a play caller, but I think the first 2 weeks have been poor. So I do think he deserves a little bit of blame for the struggles, or like struggles in air quotes, based off of last week that Arch has had. I just don't think the game plan has been all that. For someone that I'm used to being one of the best play callers, he has not been that in the first 2 seasons. So I'm in agreement with you. I don't believe anyone is the second coming of Nick Saban. I think Nick Saban is legitimately once in a generational, and I don't use the term generational the way somebody else or most other people like to, where they just use it every single other year. I don't think you see a lot of Nick Sabans, and I don't think that anyone right now in college football is anywhere close to being the next version of that.
Ryan Clark's going to be very upset with you, Denton Day. Very upset. Denton Day, college football overtime on Sirius XM, host and producer on the BetMGM Network. Got another minute or two left before we let him get back to his real life. What did you make of, if you heard him, the James Franklin comments over the weekend? He said, look, we need a commissioner. We need somebody who used to coach, but also maybe got to the media, guy who's not going to be biased towards one team, one conference, whatever. I basically landed on not like great. And I like in an ideal world, that's great, Denton Day, but none of that's going to happen unless, like the NFL, like the NHL, like the MLB, like the NBA, unless you allow the players to have a unionize and turn everything into a real job. I think like a lot of people are reaching for solutions that just aren't realistic. What did you take away from James Franklin's comments, if anything?
Well, there's no coach that's now doing media that is not going to be biased to one conference, because there's nobody that's going to coach that's going to be biased, that's not going to be biased to one conference, because they spend such a long time in that particular conference. Like, the first half of that felt like he was saying, hey, Nick Saban needs to be the commissioner. And then he was like, I don't want anyone to be biased. And you're like, all right, well, you want Urban Meyer to do it? Because Urban Meyer is not a great example of this unless he really likes Urban, because you're not going to trust Urban. I don't want Urban Meyer in power. He's kind of a freak with that. I don't know that there really is a solution, honestly. Like, the union situation, I'm pro players unionizing, because, I mean, look, they're professional athletes at this point. They are. We know this. We need to stop beating around the bush a little bit. That's what the NCAA did for such a long time, and that's why they're in this particular position. But there's not ever going to be a great, perfect. Like, it feels like Franklin. He's not alone, but it feels like Franklin in particular is just asking for the Messiah. to come. There is not going to be a college football commissioner messiah that is just around the corner. Somebody's going to be flawed. He's not going to check every single box. If you want a commissioner, fine. I want a commissioner too. I want someone that can make tough decisions and then actually, potentially maybe kind of answer for them, because the committee does a terrible job of doing that right now. But I don't know that a former coach is the first qualification that needs to be on the resume there.
Do not disagree. Denton Day, last one, will cut you loose. Biggest shock this weekend, biggest upset this weekend, biggest surprise this weekend, biggest thing we'll be talking about on Monday is?
Well, I think the biggest bet this weekend for me, Rob, is Florida to cover. It's either 7.5 or 8, depending on what book you're at. This is a great bounce back spot. Everybody thinks they suck, and they're not very good. But LSU's offense hasn't exactly been electric. Like they beat Clemson, right, and they kind of dominated that second half. They didn't look all that impressive this weekend against a far inferior opponent. So I think Florida's going to cover the either 7.5 or 8, and I would encourage all of your listeners to go get on that. I also think Wisconsin might keep it close against Alabama. That's a 20-point line. I don't know that they're going to upset Alabama. I mean, if they upset Alabama, Kalen Moore's gone. Someone will win the lottery. Somebody will get the money. You can't lose to Wisconsin. You just can't do it. Like Florida State's kind of whatever. All right, they're a good program. Wisconsin can't score. You can't lose to them. But I do think Wisconsin will keep it a little bit closer, because I don't think Alabama will be able to score against real, Power 4 opponents. So I think those are my two biggest in terms of upsets. Georgia Tech. Why not?
Yeah.
Right? Scared money don't make no money.
Scared money don't make money. Ladies and gentlemen, Denton Day is the host of College Football Overtime on SiriusXM. He's also a host and producer on the BetMGM Network. He's also an absolute dude. You legend. We'll talk to you next week, buddy. Enjoy the college football weekend.
Fellas, appreciate it. Hopefully my microphone will work next week.
We'll figure it out. I mean, it's just, it's basic audio stuff, Denton. I believe in you, buddy. I really do. All right. That's Denton Day from College Football Overtime on SiriusXM and the BetMGM Network.
Rob Brown Show presents Twitter.
And this is what the X is going on. The first thing that's Xing Rob Brown is Ben Simmons.
I've not seen anything on Ben Simmons. What did I miss?
You have not. Ben Simmons turned down a Knicks contract, and his agent dropped him.
Benjamin, my guy, I'm going to need you to lock in here for just a minute.
Basketball season starts next month, I think. So.
Not on me. I need you to lock in on basketball season, Ben, because you came into the NBA and you were going to be the next transcendent player. You were going to be the next Tim. You were going to be the next guy. And instead, you have been, with the exception of like your first year, nothing but a massive disappointment. And I'm more disappointed for you than for anybody else, because you could have absolutely been that guy. Very, very frustrating. Lock in, my dude. Figure it out.
Yeah, do all those things. Other people are speculating that he's doing all this so he can go to the Lakers. We'll see. The next thing it's Xing is George Kittle.
George Kittle Xing because he is now on the IL for the San Francisco 49ers. We knew he was going to miss some time. Now it's going to be some time, including this weekend's game against the New Orleans Saints. We are also now waiting to find out if
timeline's out. It's 3 to 5 weeks.
That's about what we thought. I think it's better, because I think the initial thought was 4 to 6. So 3 to 5 is upgraded a little bit. San Francisco may also now be without Brock Purdy coming up this weekend. No official announcement on that yet. Maybe we can win a game. Yay! Go get him, Spence. Go get him, Rat Daddy.
Dude, I was wondering why you're getting excited.
Let's get it, Rat Daddy.
Okay, so now we know who they're playing. All right, the next, you're only 0-1. I mean, Yeah,
I could have won that game. Catch the ball, Juwan. You had one job, Juwan. Catch the ball.
Come on, Juwan. I have my own Juwan problems. Brian Danielson.
Brian Danielson Xing because I don't know if this was I'm assuming like an interview, a podcast, whatever. He had an interesting conversation where he said two primary things. He said the first thing is, he said, if AEW did not exist, if Cody Rhodes didn't jump over to AEW, he does not believe that either Cody Rhodes or CM Punk would be back with the WWE. He also told the story that after he signed with AEW, VKM went to him, was like, hey, we actually do want you back. We'll give you a contract. And he told VKM, look, I'm already signed. Like, I'm a man of my word. And I feel like if I signed, you wouldn't respect me for turning my back on a contract I agreed to. He said VKM actually agreed with him and said, you're right. Go do your thing. When you're done, we'll take you back. So interesting enough.
All right. And finally, the last thing that's Xing is McDonald's.
I got nothing.
Lowering their prices on their value meals.
Nice. Nice. Interesting. Did you know that the McChicken's only $1? McChicken's on the dollar, man.
Yeah, they're smaller.
Yeah, no, I know,
smaller,
but still,
yeah.
they're not bad. I mean, for $1?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Give me 5 of those,
Well,
and I'm good to go.
You could do that.
Damn, now I'm gonna get a McChicken on the way home, man.
I also saw a thing about in Branson, they're having a McDonald's buffet. You pay $12, and it's all the Big Macs and stuff that you can eat.
Y'all,
I don't know if it's real or not, but it looked pretty cool.
One lunch there, and I would be ready to play right tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, that's it, kids. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you didn't, it's your own fault. Come back tomorrow. We'll try harder. Tomorrow on the show, we break down everything. Lulu Keston talks Gamecocks. Rashad Beard probably stopping by to talk Panthers and a whole lot more. We're off on Friday, so be here tomorrow for the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate. Later.
I like football.
I was ready for that second one this time.
I know, I saw that. All right, dudes and dudettes. Yes, LOL Branson, Missouri.
Because all the old people who go there, I guess, need to go to the McDonald's. All I saw was sandwiches. The fries should have their own things. It's constant
just bring
fries.
me one of the, one of those big yard trash cans.
There
Bring
you
me
go.
One of those. Actually, don't, because they get cold, and I will make the argument that the second McDonald's fries go cold, they are worthless trash.
Air fryer. Try it.
They work on fries?
Yes,
on
they
McDonald's fries?
do.
Really?
Absolutely.
See, I've gotten to the point where because I'm not a McDonald's guy, but the wife is, she loves stopping at the McD's. If we stop at the McDonald's and I get something, I just get the small fries because, like, once they're lukewarm, they're not good to me anymore. Like, they're either hot or bad.
Oh, you got to eat the fries.
Like first.
I went to
they go
McDonald's
first.
for the first time in a long time last Saturday, and I ate the fries between there and here.
Yeah. All right, peeps, we got to bounce. Thanks for being here. You're all amazing people. Tell your friends about us so we can get rich and famous and retired. We don't care what order it's in anymore. Have a great one. Bye-bye.